Chapter 19. Stretching lazily, June Xie stood up and laughed frivolously. Do you still have any silver? If not, I'm going back to sleep. We've only gambled for a short while, and we've only won a few silvers. What a disappointment. Miss Dugu, don't you agree? June Xie knew that he had already broken one of the opponent's plans, and now it was time for the opponent to reveal his true intentions. You can't leave. Li Jun and the rest were indeed anxious. At this moment, including Meng Haizhou, everyone's mind was a mess. They had no idea how they had lost, and in such a muddled manner. Everyone's gambling skills were better than June Mo's. But the four of them had still lost everything even though they had joined hands. Moreover, Meng Haizhou had clearly drunk the hallucinogen. Moreover, the dice had been tampered with by them. Moreover, Meng Haizhou's body had been specially sprinkled with a kind of perfume. This perfume could stimulate the minds of those who had taken the hallucinogen. Therefore, they would unknowingly be manipulated by them. But even so, the four of them had still lost so badly. How could they explain this? Could it be that June Moxie's luck was too good? But the number of points in each round was only slightly higher than theirs. Even if it was a coincidence, there was no such thing. If he was cheating, how did he do it? A person who had drunk the hallucinogen and whose gambling skills were in a mess could cheat. That would be a miracle. The plan that had been formulated in advance had been smooth sailing ever since Tang Yuan had entered the dice. But who would have thought that the main character, June Mo Xie, would arrive? Their plan would fail before it could be implemented. The six of them had lost so badly that their butts were bare. So, what was the point of talking about a plan? But once they thought of the consequences of not being able to complete the task, they all shivered and could not help but reveal a look of fear in their eyes. Li Yuren's gentle and refined face, in the hearts of these people, was even scarier than the devil's sinister smile. Even when Li Yuren gave the order to kill and exterminate the entire clan, the expression on his face was still gentle, and amiable. That was an existence that was even more devilish than the devil. I still want to bet with you. I still have my gambling capital. Meng Haizhou took off the jade pendant hanging on his waist and threw it on the table. Huh, do you really think I'm a trash collector? June Xie smiled disdainfully. You want to bet with me with some trash? If that's the case, I might as well go home and take a nap. Shaking his head, he turned around to leave. Wait, Meng Haizhou shouted, his eyes staring at Li Jun and the others. Take out everything you can. Li Jun and the others also knew that if they returned like this, their fates would be extremely miserable. One by one, they took off their clothes and took out all the valuable things they had on them, such as gems, pearls, and jade ornaments. This is young Master Tang Yuan's sword and jade pendant. I'll bet them too. It was originally 5 million, but now I'll only bet 1 million. Meng Haizhou stared closely at June Xie. June Moxie, I believe you really want to win it back for him? Dugu Xiaoi was a little dazed. She also knew the origins of Fatty Tang's sword and jade pendant. With her intelligence, she instantly understood that this bet was not as simple as it seemed. However, she was not afraid, nor did she intend to stay out of it. This kind of show was very interesting. He is him, I am me. What does his things have to do with our bet? June Xie looked at him like he was looking at an idiot. If I win, then those are my spoils of war. Things that belong to me. If I like to soak in the gutter, then soak in the gutter. I can give it to whoever I like. What does it have to do with Tang Yuan? Help him win it back? You really know how to think. If Tang Yuan uses this to bet money with you, that's his business. It has nothing to do with me. When Tang Yuan brings the money back to you, that's also your business. What does it have to do with me? As he said that, June Xie could not help but look at the jade pendant and sword, but in his heart he chuckled. These are not ordinary items. June Xie's mouth revealed an evil smile. Master Meng Dashao, don't you think so? Hearing June Xie's words, everyone present was dumbfounded. Even Tang Yuan and Dugu Xiaoi were greatly surprised. Tang Yuan had just revealed an overjoyed expression, but immediately his face became sullen again. Meng Haizhou's face immediately turned pale. He understood June Xie's meaning very clearly, because he understood he was at a loss. If the sword and the jade pendant were to be lost to Jun Xie today, and Tang Yuan came to redeem them tomorrow, what should he do? Although Jun Moxie's words did not seem to be righteous, it was reasonable. The game had its rules. The collateral could only be sold if it could not be redeemed at the maturity. If it was sold now, it would not be justifiable. Tang Yuan had inexplicably suffered such a big loss today. How could he be willing to leave the matter at that? With his vengeful personality, if he came to redeem them and they could not take out the money, it would be a big disaster. At that time, they would be in the wrong if they took the opportunity to create trouble. But then he immediately made up his mind. I'm already in a difficult situation right now. Why care about the future? Moreover, I may not lose. As for young Master Tang, we naturally have other ways to explain it. There is no need for Jun's Sun Xiao to worry about this. Moreover, Jun's Sun Xiao may not have the ability to win these things. Meng Haizhou pushed all the jade pendants, pearls, and swords forward on the table, gritted his teeth, and went straight to the point. Jun's Sun Xiao, this is the Rui jade bestowed by the Emperor. This is my uncle's most treasured sword. This is the luminous pearl that Grand Preceptor Li gave to Li Feng. These are all priceless items. I believe that if we were to appraise them, they would be worth at least 10 million taels. With third young master's current amount of money, it seems impossible to reach that amount. If third young master is willing to bet, but it is inconvenient for you to have it, I can make the decision and allow third young master to use other things to bet. Then what do you want me to use as the bet? Don't tell me you want to bet with your body. Don't tell me you have a younger sister who can't get married, and you want me to be your younger sister's husband? But why haven't I heard that you have a younger sister? Jun Xie squinted his eyes and picked his ear. Dugu Xiaoyi could not help but giggle, and then put on a straight face and kicked him fiercely from under the table. Jun Xie immediately grimaced in pain. The veins on Meng Haizhou's face throbbed, and he almost vomited blood in anger, but he forced himself to hold it in. Third young master is joking. The bet is very simple. If I lose, everything here will naturally belong to third young master. On the other hand, if I win by luck, third young master must agree to one of my requests. Do something for me, how about it? You're joking, how can I do that? Jun Xie thought to himself. The climax of the show is here. They must have had a hard time holding it in until now. He could not help but laugh, and shook his head to refuse. If you want me to commit suicide, do you think I will go? If you wanted to give you all the Jun family's assets, do you think I will get it to you? This condition of yours is really... TSK. Do you really think I'm stupid? I can guarantee that what third young master has considered will not happen. This matter will not only not require a single cent from Jun Sun Xiao, it will also not cause any harm to third young master. And third young master, you can definitely do it. If third young master feels that you can't do it, then forget about it, it's fine. Meng Haizhou almost could not help but beat up this hateful guy in front of him, and then step on him. So cheap. Then why not bet? Jun Xie readily agreed. How do we bet? Let's bet on the dice. Meng Haizhou's face showed an expression of desperation, and he had the look of a classic gambler. Just you and me. Let's see who has the biggest number. No banker. Whoever has the biggest number wins. Jun Moxie, do you dare? Haha. Do you think I'm afraid of a loser like you? Betting on the dice. Do you think you can beat me? What a joke. Jun Xie had a brainless and arrogant look on his face, as if he was about to ascend to the heavens. If not for the little thing hanging from his crotch, he would have already ascended to the heavens. Brothers, support. When Feng Ling was reading online literature, the first book he read was The Legend of the Evil God, and he admired Di Yun very much. Today we meet on the new books list. What an honor. To be able to exchange blows with the idol of my heart is also one of life's greatest joys. Whether we win or lose, we have to give it our all. Here, I wish Di Yin all the best in achieving glory, and I wish myself all the best. Recommendation tickets. Chapter 20. Li Jun, Li Feng, and the rest's eyes lit up. Everyone was a little excited. They knew that Meng Haizhou had some attainments in dice rolling. He had never lost before, and that set of dice was prepared by Meng Haizhou. If there were only two people gambling, It would be strange if Meng Haizhou couldn't win. Everyone present was well aware of Jun Moxie's gambling skills. Although they did not know what kind of luck Jun Moxie had just run into, there was no hope for Jun Moxie to win against Meng Haizhou. Who's first? Jun Xie swung his leg. It was still hurting from the kick from Dugu Xiaoyi. I'll go first. Meng Haizhou grabbed the dice in his hand and weighed it in his hand. He calmed his mind and tried to calm the churning blood in his chest. He closed his eyes and mumbled something, as if he was begging for something. This set of dice involved all the wealth that these people could take out. If they lost, the consequences would be unthinkable. Jun Xie sighed and tapped his fingers on the table. He whispered to Dugu Xiaoyi, "Do you think he will ask for help from the ghosts of his ancestors? Why do I feel that the atmosphere is so strange? It's so gloomy, as if something is wrong." He rolled up his sleeves and made a fuss. "Look, I'm getting goosebumps." Dugu Xiaoyi's stiff face collapsed because of the strange atmosphere. She laughed uncontrollably. Why didn't she realize that this foppish guy was such an interesting person? On the other hand, Li Feng and the others glared at Jun Xie, thinking that he was deliberately trying to disturb Meng Haizhou's state. Jun Xie and Tang Yuan did not back down and glare back at him. After a long time, Meng Haizhou roared. He lifted his wrist and turned his fingers. With a series of crisp sounds, the 3 dice fell into the dice cup and started spinning. 6, 6, 6. Li Feng and the rest looked at the spinning dice nervously. They roared in unison, spittle flying everywhere. The atmosphere was so heated that it was as if they were in a casino with hundreds of people. The first die stopped rolling. It was a 6. Immediately after, the second die also stopped. It was still a 6. Li Feng and the others were overjoyed. Even though the third die was still spinning, everyone seemed to have victory in their hands. Immediately, everyone's eyes became fanatical, and they shouted even louder, 6, 6, 6. If it was 3 6s, then Jun Xie would lose 99% of the time. Unless he also threw 3 6s to tie, he would definitely lose. But how could an ancestor leopard appear so easily? A few of them occasionally looked at Jun Xie with eyes full of pride. The last die finally slowed down and was about to stop. Looking at the color on the surface, it was also a 6. Even Meng Haizhou often breathed a sigh of relief. Today's bet was really beyond his level. Usually, it was already good to be able to roll 2 6s. This time, he would definitely win. In an instant, the room was silent. Li Feng, Li Jun, Meng Haizhou, and the others looked on happily. The ecstatic expression on their faces froze instantly, but the eyes of the 6 of them suddenly turned red. Li Lin and Meng Fei, who were slightly younger, grinned and were about to cry. The 3 dice lay quietly in the dice cup. 1 point, 1 2 points, 1 3 points. If Meng Haizhou was the banker, according to the rules of gambling, he would lose. In other words, no matter what the others bet, he would lose. It's over. Meng Haizhou closed his eyes and fainted. The other 5 people looked as if they had lost their parents, staring blankly at the 3 dice in the dice cup. Their eyes were dull, and there were signs of them wanting to burst into tears. Wah! Ha! Tang Yuan jumped high. It was hard to imagine how such a big fatty could jump. He grabbed Jun Xie's shoulder in ecstasy. Third young master, your luck today is really incurable. The god of fortune has arrived. Wahahaha! What god of fortune has arrived? It's clearly the god of gambling has arrived. Now it's my turn. Jun Xie had a look of lingering fear. I was scared to death just now. No wonder Brother Meng prepared for so long. It turned out that you wanted to play such a difficult move. I really admire you. He clicked his tongue twice. This level, it's simply as many as you want. It's really amazing. This kind of skill is absolutely not something an ordinary person can have. You really are the god of gambling. What do you mean it's your turn? Third young master, you don't have to throw anymore. You've already won. It's 1, 2, 3, a straight loss. Tang Yuan leapt high into the air once again. The fat on his entire body violently undulated on a magnificent scale. It trembled for a long time before he finally calmed down. Bullsh *T. You haven't won yet. This one doesn't differentiate between the winner and the loser. Li Feng roared hoarsely. His eyes were bloodshot and his body was trembling. What if you also threw 1, 2, 3? Do you think that's possible? Tang Yuan looked at him with disdain. He actually asked such a retarded question. How did I lose to this bunch of retards earlier? That's true. Jun Xia laughed out. Then, this young master will display my matchless gambling skills for all of you to see. You, quickly wake Meng Daxiao up. What if he says he didn't see it and goes back on his word? Seeing is believing, Jun Xia said in a sincere tone. F*CK. Why is this guy so smart today? Li Feng and the rest looked at each other. Even the last option is gone. Dugu Xiaoyi was not afraid of things escalating. She laughed and joined in the fun. He's not awake yet. It's okay. I'll kick him a few times. He'll definitely wake up. Meng Haizhou, who was lying on the ground, had already woken up. His plan was to go back on his word. As long as Jun Xie threw the dice, the others would immediately admit that he won and keep the dice. Then, Meng Haizhou would get up and say that he didn't see it. It didn't count. Let's do it again. Meng Haizhou had even prepared an excuse. You gambled with me, not with them. They said you won, but I didn't see it. Of course it doesn't count if I didn't see it. Who would have thought that Jun Xie would see through it? If he let Dugu Xiaoyi kick him a few times, oh my god, without waiting for him to take the initiative to get up, Tang Yuan kicked Meng Haizhou's body. Stop pretending to be dead and get up. Meng Haizhou screamed in pain and sat up. He saw Jun Xie, Tang Yuan, and Dugu Xiaoyi smiling at him. He stood up shamelessly. Meng Haizhou's face was full of frustration and his eyes were full of resentment. He saw Jun Xie, Tang Yuan, and Dugu Xiaoyi smiling at him. If Dugu Xiaoyi had not come here today, Meng Haizhou would have had the urge to forcefully imprison Jun Xie. Footsteps sounded at the door. A person hurried in. Young Master Meng, young Master Li. He suddenly stopped. The person who came was the guard who was sent to deliver the message. But when he saw the expressions on the faces of Li Feng and the rest, even a pig would know that there was a major change in the situation. But no one would have thought that things would turn out like this. Watch carefully. Jun Xie proudly picked up the dice and looked at Meng Haizhou. Meng Haizhou and the others' faces were ashen as they watched Jun Xie's performance. Their teeth clenched so hard that cracking sounds could be heard. We're rich. Jun Xie laughed heartily as he walked out of the door. Behind him, a guard carrying a large bundle followed behind him. After Jun Xie and the rest left, there was one less cup for everyone to drink tea. But all the nouveau riche were so dejected that no one noticed. Thanks to Throwing Hedgehog, Young Master Xie, Wind Blue Dragon, Ing Luo, Book Friend 090-709, 2210-45491, Shushan Buddhism, Every Night Messenger, Underworld King of Shadows, Nanmin Fengdao ****, and other brothers and sisters tipping. Asking for recommendation votes. The distance is getting bigger. Keep going. I'm going to write. Update at midnight. Chapter 21. Dugu Xiaoyi followed behind Jun Xie, her eyes constantly glancing at the large package in the guard's hands. She had originally thought that she had earned quite a lot today. However, in the last round, Jun Xie had suddenly won so many treasures. Many of them were things that could not be measured with money. This caused Dugu Xiaoyi, who had always felt that she was not well off, to suddenly feel unbalanced in her heart. How could such a useless debauchee win so many good things? And I've always been obedient, but I don't have anything? Dugu Xiaoyi's eyes kept turning. How should I get more things from this guy? But if I ask, wouldn't I lose the demeanor of a lady from a noble family? Damn Jun Moxie. Why didn't he take the initiative to offer a few things? Tang Yuan's smile almost reached the back of his ears, looking even more like a Maitreya Buddha. He walked with vigor and vigor. Third young master, you really made me completely convinced today. Wahaha, seeing those guys lose so cleanly, I don't have to mention the joy in my heart. Hey, brother, shouldn't you give me the sword and the jade pendant? Give you? Jun Xie was taken aback and stopped walking, looking at Tang Yuan in surprise. What are you talking about? Why should I get it to you? Why? Tang Yuan was stunned. He stammered. Don't you intend to return it to me? Return it to you? The expression on June Xie's face became even more strange. What do I owe you? I actually want to return it to you? What are you talking about? Then, I cough. Tang Yuan's expression was extremely pitiful. Only now did he remember that those things were won by June Xie, which meant that those things already belonged to June Xie. Why should I ask for such precious things from him? But what if father asks after I return home? What should I do? Money was not a big problem. The biggest problem was that the item was already in June Xie's hands. It was even harder for him to get it back. The Tang family's eldest young master finally realized that although June Xie had returned victorious, his problem was still unsolved. Fatty Tang shuddered at the thought of his father's hideous face. I definitely can't return it to you. June Xie shook his head. I've never done anything that doesn't bring me any benefits. I won't do it today, and I won't do it in the future. At this point, he looked at Tang Yuan's dejected face and suddenly changed his tone. However, I can sell it to you. How much benefit do you get from this matter? June Xie smiled mysteriously and stretched out a finger. Wow, you are indeed a good brother. Having escaped from death, Tang Yuan was so overjoyed that he forgot himself. Unable to restrain the excitement in his heart, he did not even think about what he could gain after losing everything. Instead, he leapt up and hugged June Xie. He did not expect that his weight would land on June Xie's body. June Xie's current body could not bear his weight, and he felt the ground with a loud thud. The Tang family's eldest young master was indeed a heavyweight. After pressing down on June Xie's body, all that could be seen was his fat jiggling on the ground. Not even the corner of June Xie's clothes could be seen. Dugu Xiaoi immediately laughed so hard that she looked like a gourd covering her mouth. These two clowns. This is too funny. Everyone scrambled to pull Tang Yuan up. June Xie was almost suffocated to death. He was so full of fat that not even air could enter. June Xie was incomparably depressed. I was actually pressed down by a man today. What the hell? Fatty Tang, I'm very angry. I have decided to raise the price. I will not sell the sword and the jade pendant for less than 1,000,000 taels of silver. I will leave them for you tomorrow. Come back the day after tomorrow. It will be 1.5 million taels. June Xie crawled up. His nostrils were still filled with the smell of fat pork. He wanted to vomit. So, he could not help but fiercely say, "Ah!" Tang Yuan screamed. The group of people walked out of the street in a grandiose manner. Then, they stopped at the same time. The Jun and Tang family resided in the east, and the Dugu family resided in the west. As they were about to part ways, Dugu Xiao suddenly felt a strange and inexplicable feeling within her heart. Looking at June Xie's evil smile, Dugu Xiao thought to herself, although Jun Moxie's reputation is not good, and he is an out-and-out debauchee, teasing him for a bit is quite interesting. Thinking of this, Dugu Xiao shouted, "Jun Moxie, are you coming to my grandfather's birthday?" June Xie was startled. "If my family wants me to go, then I will definitely go. What if your family doesn't want you to go?" Dugu Xiao bit her lip. "Then I naturally won't go." June Xie felt very baffled. "If they don't want me to go, then why should I go? Looking for a beating? Bastard." Hearing June Xie's words, Dugu Xiao suddenly became very angry. She immediately rushed over and punched and kicked him. She said fiercely, "If you dare not go, then I will beat you every time I see you. Do you understand?" June Xie suddenly felt like a tiger falling to the plains. How sad. The dignified #1 assassin in the world is being bullied by a little girl. He can't even fight back. When will this body be able to meet my requirements? He covered his face with all his might and said, F***CK. I will definitely go. I will definitely go. That's more like it. At least you know what's good for you. You must prepare a birthday gift when the time comes. It can't be less than what you won today. Dugu Xiao looked at him fiercely. Her big and lively eyes wandered around the big bag reluctantly. Then, she turned her head and smiled sweetly. She rubbed her wrist and snorted delicately. She turned around and put her hands behind her back. She slightly raised her chin like a proud deer and skipped away. It turned out that this girl still wanted to get more things from June Xie's hands. However, this attitude was already very different from before. Although, in Duga Xiaoyi's heart, June Moxie was still a good-for-nothing playboy. Seeing that Duga Xiaoyi had left, June Xie turned around and looked at Tang Yuan with a smile that wasn't a smile. "Young Master Tang, you are really amazing. TSK, TSK, you even lost your wife. I really admire you." Tang Yuan's face and neck suddenly turned red. Looking at Tang Yuan, June Xie's eyes slowly turned cold. "Tang Yuan, it doesn't matter if you mess around. But this time you almost caused my death. Do you know how mysterious today's matter is?" Cause your death." Tang Yuan was stunned. Even in his dreams, he didn't expect that June Xie would suddenly say such earth-shattering words. "Do you really think that your luck is so bad? Are you really such a muddle-headed idiot? You lost your silver and then lost your sword. You lost your sword and then lost your pendant? After losing, Pei was so idiotic that he even bet his fiancée on it? Tang Yuan, ask yourself, are you really such an idiot? Even if you are really such an idiot, how serious will the consequences of this matter be? The reputation of the two big families will be swept to the ground. Can you afford it? You actually didn't think about this. Don't tell me you don't feel that something is wrong. Brothers and sisters, let's move. Sand can be gathered to form a tower. Gather armpits to make a mickle. The foolish old man moves the mountain. The elite guards fill the sea. Let our evil monarch charge forward. Chapter 22. June Xie glared fiercely at Tang Yuan. His gaze was as sharp as a knife, piercing straight into his heart. Ask yourself, do you have the guts to do that? Tang Yuan's face was bitter, but he slowly calmed down. He was not an idiot. On the contrary, he was actually a very shrewd playboy. As he thought back to June Xie's words, he immediately realized that something was wrong. This matter didn't seem like something he could do at all. Even in his dreams, he might not be able to do such a thing. But such an outrageous thing happened with his own hands. Why? Am I really that unbearable? No, it's not like that. Although I'm not a good person, and although I often commit crimes, there are some things that I still understand. What happened today was something that I would rather die than do. But today I did it. Moreover, I did something that was even more outrageous and shameful than what I would rather die than do. This kind of thing was enough to bring shame to the entire family, so that I would never be able to make a comeback. But why did I do that? In a split second, Tang Yuan's mind was in chaos. Fatty Tang almost collapsed. Before you went in, was Meng Haizu also wearing these clothes? June Xie's eyes were sharp, but the corners of his mouth hid a devilish smile. Yes, but what does that matter? Is there a problem? Tang Yuan was puzzled. Did you smell a special fragrance on Meng Haizu's body? It smells good, right? June Xie asked again. Yes, it seems a little. It is indeed a very special fragrance. Tang Yuan was a little uncertain. After you went in, did you first serve a cup of tea like I did today? June Xie pressed on. Yes, that's right. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? Humph. June Xie sneered. It's nothing. It's just the beginning of your eternal damnation. Tang Yuan wasn't an idiot. After thinking through June Xie's words, he immediately jumped up with a face full of shock. You're saying there's actually a problem with that tea? Just the tea. June Xie sneered. Meng Haizu's clothes, that fragrance, that tea, all of them are problematic. A group of gamblers gathered together to drink tea first? What kind of rule was this? You pighead, you still haven't noticed such an obvious flaw. Then didn't you drink it too? Why are you fine? Tang Yuan was still confused. Do you still remember that after I drank the tea, I sneezed before I went in? June Xie had an indescribable expression on his face. With a faint smile, he said, I even wet your clothes, didn't I? Yeah, something like that happened. Tang Yuan suddenly remembered. Most people would only spit out some saliva when they sneeze. But I directly wet a large part of your clothes. Did you not suspect anything? June Xie tilted his head and looked at him. I see. Tang Yuan suddenly understood. Then he was puzzled. But how did you know so clearly? How did I know so clearly? June Xie was startled. This was a difficult question to answer. Could it be that he had to tell him that in his past life he was already extremely familiar with these kinds of drugs, to the point that he did not need to use his nose or eyes to feel them? Junxie rubbed his nose. He had no choice but to pour a basin of dirty water on himself. About that, I use this to do the same thing. Do you understand? As expected of Jun Sunshao. Really good. Tang Yuan immediately admired him from the bottom of his heart. He said in admiration, "You really are a great connoisseur." Junxie didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He reminded him, "Although your note has been destroyed, I'm afraid that the news of you losing your wife will still be spread out. You should think about what to do first." "Yeah, what should I do?" As soon as this matter was mentioned, Tang Yuan suddenly panicked and had no idea. "At present, you only have one way. That is to go home immediately and then tell this matter to your old man. Don't hide anything and don't exaggerate anything. Make the first move and gain the upper hand. Let your old man quickly come up with an idea and formulate a countermeasure in advance. If your old man comes back to ask you after knowing from others, then you are really finished." Junxie laughed sinisterly in his heart. "As for you, you are completely set up. I believe your old man will not blame you too much. Moreover, your old man is definitely better than you on how to do this matter. Don't you have a stomach full of anger towards him now? Then let me tell you a smart move. Leave your treasured sword and pin it with me for the time being. Then you take 1,000,000 taels of silver and ask them to get back the mortgage. And they can't take it out. Do you understand what I mean?" Junxie lowered his voice like a devil, tempting the people to commit a crime. "That's right." Tang Yuan slapped his thigh. "This is the only feasible way and the only chance to fight for the initiative. But as long as they use money to get back the mortgage from you, then..." "Fool! At that time, they used those things to bet on a promise from me. They didn't bet on a specific amount of silver. There's a big difference between the two. Would I get to them? Stupid. I've already said it like this, and you still don't understand. What are you waiting for?" Junxie laughed. "All right, I'll give you another thing." As if performing a magic trick, Junxie took out a teacup from his pocket. The most surprising thing was that there were a few water droplets at the bottom of the teacup. "This is the cup with the hallucinogen in it. I took it along the way." Junxie laughed. "There seems to be some in it. Ha ha. Brilliant. Truly brilliant. Third young master is really brilliant." Amidst the flattery, Fatty Tang carefully took the cup, and like a wild horse that had its butt cut by a knife, he literally rolled away. "You want to trick me? Then I'll trick you first." Junxie looked at Fatty Tang's back, stirring up a cloud of dust, and smiled proudly. With Fatty Tang's and his father-in-law's family background, the Li and Meng families would probably be very lively this time, right? Junxie was already prepared to watch the show from a small stool. If not for Dugu Xiaoyi's unexpected participation in the bet, and the fact that Jun Moxie had become Junxie, the final outcome would have been different. Even if he was not afraid, he would have to expose his true strength in order to break out of this situation and become the target of public criticism. That would not be worth it. Although their opponents were also a few good-for-nothings on the surface, the families standing behind these good-for-nothings were all first-rate families in the capital. Without the approval of the family, how could they dare to drug Tang Yuan and Junxie with just these few pieces of raw materials? How could they dare to act so arrogantly and recklessly? Impossible. There was absolutely no such possibility. Although Jun Moxie was a very disappointing debauchee, behind him stood Grandpa Jun and the Jun family. On the surface, the Jun family only had Grandpa Jun to support them. However, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Nearly a third of the military's generals were under Grandpa Jun's command. It could be said that as long as Grandpa Jun was around, these people would be the strong backing of that debauchee, Jun Moxie, because, whether they were willing or not, they were branded with the word Jun. If something were to happen, it would be enough to shake the entire court. If the Jun family were to fall, these people would not have a good time either. When the tree falls, the rats would scatter, and they would be suppressed by the other factions. But as long as the Jun family existed, these people would have a backbone, and they would be able to unite and fight against external enemies. It didn't matter if they were domestic political enemies or foreign enemies. So, nothing could happen to the June family. So, if something were to happen to June Moxie, these people would not just stand by and watch. Although all of them looked down on this debauchee from the bottom of their hearts, they would not hesitate to take action when the time came. It was the same for Tang Yuan's family. Although the Tang family's influence was not as great as the Jun family's, but it was definitely one of the best in the capital. If the Tang family and the Jun family were to join hands, even the Dugu family would have to retreat. Of course, this did not mean that the Jun family was inferior to the Dugu family. During the Jun family's heyday, they had suppressed the Dugu family to the point where they couldn't even raise their heads. Moreover, this had lasted for a full 7 years. But now, the Jun family's talents had withered, and the Dugu family had sprung up like bamboo shoots after a spring rain. In this regard, the Dugu family's talents were much more abundant than the Jun family's. So, the Dugu family currently had great potential. At least, they definitely had more potential than the Jun family in the eyes of outsiders. But, as long as Grandpa Jun was around, the Jun family would not fall. Even if the emperor wanted to move against the Jun family, they would have to think twice. In fact, it could even be said that they wouldn't dare. But now, the Li and Meng families had simultaneously moved against Tang Yuan and Jun Xie. This seemed a bit unusual. Very unusual. There must be something fishy if things are unusual. Yes, it was only a few foppish playboys who took action this time. They were genuine foppish playboys. Even if the matter was really blown up, in a normal sense, it was just a few kids playing around. Everyone just laughed it off, and no one would really take it to heart. But on the other hand, what if they succeeded? I recommend a book for women, The Great Tang Nutritionist. Brothers and sisters who are interested can read it. Chapter 23. Jun Xie speculated that if they were to succeed today, Tang Yuan and himself would fall into the enemy's hands. The Tang family did not matter, as they had other successors, but the Jun family only had him, the only scorpion. Although it was just a request, but if it was given to the ignorant Jun Moxie, only God knows what kind of disaster it would turn into. Most likely, he would not know that he had caused a disaster and would still be proud of himself. In any case, his grandfather would clean up the mess for him. At that time, once the struggle becomes clear, the enemy would have something to use against him. Even if Grandpa Jun was willing to sacrifice his own family for the sake of righteousness, what would those generals do? Even a little bit of hesitation could lead to immeasurable consequences. Jun Xie felt that he needed to recharge. Even though his experience from his past life was rich, today, Jun Xie could clearly feel his own inadequacies. First was the so-called political sensitivity. This was something that he lacked the most in his previous life as an assassin. If he was still a lone assassin in this life, it would not matter. But if he wanted to establish a foothold in this big family, protect the people he cared about from harm, and maintain the stability of this big situation, it would be a fool's dream if he did not have a very keen political sensitivity. He did not need to be an official, he did not need to rise and fall in the court, but he needed to have the awareness to fight. It was already noon when Grandpa Jun returned home. On the way back, he happened to meet the Tang family's old master Tang, Tang Wanli, who was angrily leading a group of warriors and bodyguards as they galloped through the streets, heading north. From the looks of it, he was definitely going to find someone to cause trouble for. The north was where the Li family, Meng family, and several other big families were located. Looking at Tang Wanli's face that was as black as the bottom of a pot, the anger between his eyebrows seemed to be on the verge of bursting out. Grandpa Jun was secretly pleased, but I have not seen this old thing so angry for a long time. The old Master Tang, who had always been amiable, to be angered to such an extent, no matter who he is targeting, this drama will be very entertaining. What he didn't know was that the main character who directed this drama was his grandson, Jun Moxie, whom he disliked the most. Grandpa Jun was very curious and asked, "Brother Tang, where are you going? Why was he in such a hurry? Could it be that someone stole your granddaughter-in-law? Look at how flustered and exasperated you are." Ha ha! Grandpa Tang's original intention was to make a joke, But he did not know that the reason why old Master Tang Tang Wanli was angry was coincidentally because of this matter. Old man Jun, don't try to take advantage of me. You're not a good person either. Wait till I've wiped out the Li and Meng families. Then I'll come back and settle the score with you. You old fool. Tang Wanli's snow-white beard was blown straight. He glared at him angrily, flicked his whip, and galloped away. He also knew what kind of trash Jun Moxie was. He was not even as good as his own grandson. His grandson had fallen into misfortune, while Jun Moxie had emerged victorious. There must be another expert behind the scenes, most likely Jun Zhan Tian in front of him. Seeing that Jun Zhan Tian was joking with him, he naturally did not give Grandpa Jun any face. Only Grandpa Jun was left standing dumbfounded. What is this Tang Wanli trying to do? Just one sentence, and he had scolded me 3 or 4 times. Furthermore, he had said it in such an ambiguous manner. What is this? After a long time, he spat out a mouthful of saliva. How did the Li and Meng families offend you? But, you old fool, this is exactly what I wanted. As the saying goes, when a dog bites a dog, both mouths have fur. Tang Yuan followed behind his grandfather. His head hung low and his face full of shame. His face was red and swollen. When Fatty Tang returned home, his father was sitting in the main hall. The moment he opened his mouth, he cried out for his father and mother. His father was so scared that he nearly fell off his chair. After a careful look, he found out that his most fearful grandfather, old Master Tang, was also present. At this time, he chose, as a result, there was no logical reasoning left. Under Elder Tang's coercion, Tang Yuan squeezed back his tears and explained everything that had happened from beginning to end. One could imagine what was going on. The Tang family's father and son flew into a rage. Then, they looked at the teacup that Tang Yuan had taken out. There were still remnants of medicine on it. A pharmacist from the family came to take a look and immediately confirmed that everything Tang Yuan had said was the truth. The Li and Meng families were so vicious. This was clearly to make the Tang family infamous. How could the old Master Tang, who had always valued the family's reputation, endure this? Old Master Tang was immediately unable to restrain his anger. He grabbed Tang Yuan's plump body and gave him a dozen slaps. Then, he threw him to the ground and ordered Tang Yuan to lead the way to the Li and Meng families to seek justice. Old Master Tang was older than Grandpa Jun. He was a veteran of 3 dynasties. In recent years, he had lived in seclusion and had not left his house for several years. This time, he was accompanied by a large entourage, his murderous aura soaring to the heavens. It seemed that this trip would inevitably cause chaos for the Li and Meng families. Although Grandpa Jun had been scolded by Tang Wanli, he saw that old Master Tang was in a fit of anger. He also knew that old Master Tang was going to find trouble with the Li and Meng families. Not only was he not angry, he even felt a bit happy. Thus, he did not ask any more questions. With one look, he knew that it was definitely that fatty Tang Yuan who had caused trouble. Fortunately, my family's Mo Xie has been studying poetry and has been very obedient. This has saved this old man a lot of trouble. If he had also caused trouble for this old man, TSK, that old Tang is really pitiful. He is already so old, yet he is still angry because of his children and grandchildren. Looking at Tang Wanli's almost hysterical state, Grandpa Jun could not help but feel a sense of schadenfreude. Who would have guessed that when he returned home triumphantly, he would be informed that Jun Xie had brazenly brought the silver and brought his bodyguards out to gamble. Grandpa Jun, who had rushed home, excitedly suddenly staggered. Winning or losing the silver was a small matter. But if something else were to happen, then things would become very serious. Upon hearing the news of Jun Xie's return, Grandpa Jun furiously rushed over to kill his way in. Upon entering the room, he was immediately startled. Upon a large bed, a bundle was casually tossed onto it. The bundle was filled with the radiance of jewels and jewels. Not a single one of them was ordinary. The petite little Ku was smiling with her eyes squinted, calculating with her fingers how much she could sell each of them for. When he took a closer look, Grandpa Jun was once again shocked. Among the items, there were 3 of the best quality jade pendants. They were sparkling and translucent, exuding a warm luster. One look, and one could tell that they were not ordinary items. However, what really shocked Grandpa June was not the jade pendants themselves, but the words engraved on them. X year, X month, congratulations to grandson Feng. X year, X month, congratulations to grandson Jun. Wasn't this the family jade pendant that only the direct descendants of the Leaf family had the qualifications to wear? This was also the symbol of the Leaf family. Moreover, the words Feng and Jun were the names of 2 of Grand Preceptor Li's grandsons. These 2 things, how did they end up in Mo Xie's hands? Could it be that this kid went out to rob someone? Grandpa June stroked his beard, his eyes filled with bewilderment. Looking at the other items, Grandpa June gave a muffled grunt. He had used too much strength and pulled out a strand of his beard. Those 2 jade pendants clearly belonged to the imperial family. In addition, there was the Meng family's family jade pendant, and that pearl, and these things here, where did they come from? As he asked this question, Grandpa June's face twitched. He had already made preparations to clean up after Jun Xie's mess. If this kid really did rob them, then this is going to be a big problem. It was not that Grandpa June's brain was not working well. He had never thought that these things were won by his precious grandson. It was just that Grandpa June knew his grandson too well. He did not have the ability to win these high-grade items. It was laughable that he was just laughing at that old bastard Tang Wanli. Unexpectedly, what was waiting for him in his own home was actually such a big problem. Grandpa June was left speechless for a moment. My mood is very bad. In the afternoon, I suddenly discovered an anomaly in the data. It turned out that the number of clicks had decreased from 80,000 to 40,000, a decrease of half. I suspected that my points had been deducted due to cheating. This is truly a groundless thing, an unexpected calamity falling from the sky. I am very, very speechless. My mood is extremely bad. I lost all interest in writing, so I sent a chapter ahead of time and went out for a stroll. I am depressed. Chapter 24. Only then did little Ku realize that the patriarch was standing at the doorway. She could not help but jump in fright and hastily knelt down to pay her respects. These treasures were won by the young master when he went out to gamble. Won them? Really? Junjian Tian's voice changed slightly, but his heart was filled with surprise and joy. If not for his strong willpower, he would have cried out in surprise. However, the surprise was far greater than the joy. Grandpa June was naturally suspicious. Since when did this kid win money? Ever since he learned how to gamble a few years ago, he had never won anything. If not for Grandpa June's strict restrictions on his allowance, it is likely that June Moxie would have already lost the entire June family. But now, not only did he win, he also won back these high-grade treasures. Yes, these treasures were indeed won by the young master. This servant would not dare to deceive the patriarch. In addition to these treasures, there are also 3 million taels of silver. These were all brought back by the young master. Little Ku replied with certainty. I heard that these treasures were won from young Master Li and young Master Meng. After returning home, the young master left these things here for me to tidy up. Then, he went to the library to read. Little Ku was very proud because the young master had never won any money before. But this time, he actually won so much. In the little girl's heart, the young master had suddenly become powerful. Although little Ku was still very afraid of the young master was really different from before. At the very least, he was not as annoying as before. That kid went to the library again. Grandpa June's heart was filled with joy. He no longer had to worry about cleaning up his grandson's mess. But when he heard little Ku's explanation of his grandson's whereabouts, he could not help but stare blankly. It was as if he could not bear the blow. He raised his trembling hand and touched his forehead. After confirming that he did not have a fever and did not hear wrongly, he recovered. Oh, wait for him to return. Tell him to come to my place. After saying that, Grandpa June left with the housekeeper, Old Pang. Little Lolita's eyes flashed as she counted again and again. These 3 jade pendants can be sold for at least 100,000 taels of silver. Those pearls and gems can be sold for at least 150,000 taels of silver. And that one can be sold, plus these silver notes. Wow, old Pang, what do you think? On the road, Jun John Tian was somewhat uncertain. This grandson's actions this past month were simply too incomprehensible. What is he trying to do? What was he doing? This old servant doesn't know, but the way the young master is doing things is good. Old Pang was also confused, but as long as he did not have to clean up Jun Moxie's mess, it was still a good thing. If he is really interested in reading books, what do you think about sending him to the Wenxing Heavenly Literature Institute? Grandpa Jun suddenly had a whimsical and dreamlike vision. The Wenxing Heavenly Literature Institute was a place where the world's top scholars and scholars went about their studies. Including the teachers and students, there were no more than 1,000 people. This number was considered to be a very small proportion of the Tianxiang Empire's population of hundreds of millions. In other words, only the top talents with clean backgrounds and outstanding backgrounds were qualified to study here. Those who graduated would be recruited by the country, as long as they were qualified to graduate. However, in order to truly attain the qualifications to graduate, even those famous talents had to undergo arduous training. It could be said that the Wenxing Heavenly Literature Institute was the golden avenue of the world's scholars. No matter how illustrious your status was, even if you were a princess or a prince, if you didn't have genuine talent, you would never be able to enter the Wenxing Heavenly Literature Institute. Grandpa Jun actually intended to allow Jun Xie to enter the Wenxing Heavenly Literature Institute. It seems that he already believed that Jun Xie was a prodigal son who had turned over a new leaf. Perhaps it will be very difficult. Jun Mo Xie wants to enter the Wenxing Heavenly Literature Institute. Everyone who can enter that place has studied hard for more than 10 years. They are all famous talents from all over the world who have the qualifications to participate in the entrance examination. Do you really think that your grandson, who has been ignorant for 16 years, can enter just by reading for a month? Of course, old Pang was too embarrassed to say it clearly. So, he continued to speak in a reserved manner. Those old masters of the Wenxing Heavenly Literature Institute are too pedantic. If master were to go there in person, you would be met with a snag. Cough, cough. I think it would be better to take your time and reconsider. Sigh. The most unfortunate thing is that this kid's Xianqi cultivation is truly mediocre. It would be for the best if he could enter the Shun Xian Institute. My Jun family has been generals on the battlefield for generations. If we were to produce a sour little master, then it would truly be incongruous. Jun John Tian also understood that this matter would not be easy to handle. When the second prince entered the Wenxing Heavenly Literature Institute, even His Majesty the Emperor had to eat the old master's sullen words before he could reluctantly enter. Jun John Tian had never been able to get along with that sour little master. So, this matter would certainly be even more difficult. Not to mention, Mo Xie's personality. Old Pang, tell me, what path should I arrange for Mo Xie in the future? Grandpa Jun did not stop sighing today. Let him enter the scholarly path. That kid is definitely not cut out for it. Let him enter the martial path. This guy lacks the slightest bit of talent. He cannot endure the slightest bit of hardship. Let him enter the business world. I reckon that even this old man's coffin will be filled with losses. Are we just going to let him eat and wait for his death? Speaking of this matter, old Pang was also at his wit's end. He consoled. Young master has made some progress recently. Perhaps he is now working hard and turning over a new leaf. Young master is still young. I believe that it is not too late. This kind of hypocritical consolation is the most annoying thing. Now, even you have learned it. Jun John Tian frowned and said impatiently, Old Pang, this is not like you. The Pang Lai who single-handedly charged into tens of thousands of soldiers on the battlefield is not like this. Old Pang smiled bitterly. I don't want to say that, but what else can I say? I could even say directly, children and grandchildren have their own blessings. You don't have to worry about them. Everyone knows that your grandson is a piece of mud that can't be helped to a wall. No matter how much you worry about him, no matter how you arrange an escape route, he will still be completely ruined by you. Say that. Then why don't you just draw your sword on me? There is another way to protect the young master. That way, you won't have to worry about him. Old Pang suddenly thought of something and said, "What way? Say it quickly." Junjian Tian was a little surprised. He had originally wanted to vent his frustrations today. He did not expect Old Pang to have a way. This method is a little difficult to implement. Old Pang's words were at the tip of his tongue, but he hesitated. It is to buy a young 8th level Xian beast for the young master. Then, we will do whatever it takes to hasten its growth. Stop, stop, stop. Before he could finish, Junjian Tian interrupted him. Old Pang, are you talking in your sleep? Tell me, is this possible? Old Pang opened his eyes wide and thought for a moment. Then, he said dejectedly, Impossible. Since you know it is impossible, why are you still saying it? Junjian Tian sighed. Xian beasts were a special kind of creature in the Xian continent. Any high-level Xian beast possessed extremely valiant strength. It was said that any level 8 Xian beast could rival a Sky Xian expert and not be at a disadvantage. If it was an even stronger 9th level Xian beast, it could even compete with an expert of the same level as the Great Shun Xian. However, Xian beasts were divided into ranks just like humans. In fact, the division was even stricter. If a human expert had mastered some special skills and methods, it was possible for him to challenge someone a higher level or even defeat an opponent with a higher level of Xianqi cultivation. However, this was impossible in a battle between Xian beasts. Xian beasts below the 4th level could only be considered as wild beasts. In other words, they were more destructive than ordinary wild beasts. Only from the 5th level onwards could they possess some special abilities. However, Xian beasts of the 5th or 6th level were not very useful. This was especially true for young beasts. What was even more special was that there was no possibility of taming an adult Xian beast. Young beasts needed at least 10 years to reach adulthood. Some even needed more than 100 years. So, when a young beast grew up, it would be too old. What was the use of having it? Moreover, Xian beasts of the 5th or 6th level only had the strength of a silver Xian expert. Therefore, the price of Xian beasts of this level was not high, and it was relatively easy to find. However, Xian beasts of the 7th level and above were different. Xian beasts of the 7th level and above had a fundamental breakthrough. It could be said that they possessed intelligence not inferior to that of humans. Apart from innate skills, they also possessed a special ability. It was this special ability that made the nurturing of young beasts not so difficult. Head covered, sleeping soundly. I actually slept soundly. When I woke up, I felt refreshed. Yesterday's gloominess had already disappeared to who knows where. Thinking about it, I suddenly felt a little funny. I was wrongly accused, but I still had to punish myself. How stupid. All right, brothers, don't worry. Feng Ling will not fall. The data has been deducted. Then, we will rush it up again. Suddenly, I remembered a song, Hail of Bullets. There were 2 lines in it. Let's charge, brothers and sisters. This is our land. Let's charge, brothers and sisters. We swear to plant the red flag on the battlefield. Chapter 25. The bodies of Xian beasts of the 3rd rank and above would automatically form a type of crystal known as the Xian core. The special ability of Xian beasts of the 7th rank and above was that they could absorb the energy of the Xian core condensed in the bodies of other animals, thereby accelerating their own growth. Because of this, level 7 and above Xian beast cubs were extremely rare. Even if one were to appear, its price would be sky high. As for level 8 and above Xian beast cubs, that was a priceless commodity. It was simply a legend. In the past few decades, no one had ever heard of anyone possessing a level 8 and above Xian beast cub. High-level Xian beasts were mainly concentrated in the depths of the Tian Fa forest. That was a dangerous place that even a great Shun Xian expert would not dare to enter. The Tian Fa forest was vast and boundless, occupying almost a quarter of the continent's land. The periphery of the forest was filled with weak Xian beasts and ordinary wild beasts. However, the deeper one went, the more dangerous it became. Moreover, if one were to encounter a high-level Xian beast, it would simply flee. The Tian Fa forest was a paradise for high-level Xian beasts, impossible to track down. If one's strength was insufficient, there was no hope of coming out alive. If one wanted to obtain a level 8 Xian beast cub, they would need at least 3 Tian Xian experts to defeat at least 2 adult level 8 Xian beasts. That was easier said than done. Moreover, the defense of Xian beast was much stronger than that of a human Tian Xian expert. Moreover, if one were to encounter a group of them instead of 2, then even a great Shun Xian expert would be buried. As long as one had reached the level of a Tian Xian expert, which one of them was not a hero or a person of great status. Glory, splendor, wealth, and rank could be obtained. Why would they need to risk their lives to make a living? Therefore, Grandpa Jun did not know whether to laugh or cry at this suggestion. Let's go to the library and see what this guy is up to. Grandpa Jun felt that his grandson had been acting strangely for the past few days. The two of them, one in front and one behind, strolled towards the library. When they reached the library, they found nothing. Young master left the library an hour ago. We do not know where he went. The guard who was guarding the library reported innocently. The two of them looked at each other. Let's go back to the study. Grandpa Jun was tired from all the walking and felt a little dispirited. He casually gave an order. Bring all the books he was reading over. While Tang Wanli was leading a large group of people to the Li and Meng families to seek justice for his grandson, Junjian Tian was also feeling extremely vexed about his grandson. In the Li clan's courtyard, Li Yuren's tall figure stood elegantly under a peony tree, and his white robe was spotless. There was a faint smile on his handsome, almost perfect face. He looked at the dark clouds in the distant sky with deep and persistent eyes and did not speak for a long time. A warm breeze blew and Li Yuren's sleeves fluttered, making him look even more like a jade tree, a celestial being from the heavens. Anyone who saw him could not help but feel a sense of admiration in their hearts. Such elegance could be said to be as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns, rarely seen in the world. In front of him, the three brothers, Li Feng and Li Zhen, stood upright. At this time, the autumn wind should be the most pleasant, but the three of them were sweating profusely. They did not even dare to wipe their sweat, letting it drip down to the tip of their nose, to the tip of their eyebrows, and into their eyes. It was extremely uncomfortable, but they did not even dare to blink. Since it has come to this, there is no point in saying anything more. Let's just forget about it. This time, Jun Moxie was lucky. As for you guys, as a Yuran said this, the three of them started trembling. They were all part of the Li clan's next generation, but the three of them seemed to be afraid of this gentle youth. No one had ever seen this youth lose his temper before, but every time the three of them saw him, they would feel a chill from deep within their bones. Each of you, go and collect 40 sticks and deduct half a year's salary. Li Yuran smiled gently. His actions were elegant, and his eyes looked into the distance. His gaze was gentle, like the ripples of spring water. From tomorrow onwards, do what you were supposed to do. Understand? Collecting 40 sticks, even if they did not break their bones, they would at least have their skin torn and flesh torn. And they would still have to do what they were supposed to do tomorrow. This punishment could be said to be extremely harsh. It was completely inhumane, especially when the three people in front of him were Li Yuren's cousins who were very close by blood. But Li Yuren said it so calmly. His tone was light, and his eyes were calm. It was as if he was not punishing his own cousins, or even 3 people, but 3 dispensable dogs. But Li Feng and the other 2 felt as if they had been pardoned. They thanked him profusely, as if this punishment was a favor beyond the law, and how insignificant it was. In Jun Moxie, Li Yuran smiled gently, and said indifferently, go. Hearing this word, the 3 of them dared to move their bodies. They walked out in an unusually obedient manner. Everyone's face was filled with joy. Come. Li Yuran clapped his hands lightly. Instantly, 2 men in black appeared beside him without a sound. They bowed and waited for the order. Investigate carefully. What did Jun Moxie rely on to win the money this time? And why didn't the hallucinogen take effect? Also, confirm whether Dugu Xiaoyi's appearance was an accident. Even if Dugu Xiaoyi went, Jun Moxie still shouldn't have had the chance to win. Once you have investigated these matters, immediately come back and report to me. His voice was still soft and indifferent, as if he did not want to waste any more energy to speak. Yes. The two men in black bowed respectfully. Before they could turn around, they saw a man in green running over, panting. He stopped about 10 steps in front of Li Yuran and slowly slowed down. He tried his best to adjust his breathing, but his face was red. Then, he controlled his heavy breathing and came in front of Li Yuran, reporting to young Master. The old Duke of the Tang family, Tang Wanli, has brought young Master Tang and more than 100 men and horses. They are galloping all the way to our Li family. Oh, give them a beating? Li Yuran raised her eyebrows lightly and said softly, I didn't expect that even Tang Yuan would have such thoughts. It seems that some of the previous plans have to be adjusted. Ha! And go tell Li Zhen and the others that when old Master Tang asks, they should answer like this and so on. Also, execute the family rules immediately. When a fight is halfway through, bring old Master Tang for questioning. One of the men in black received the order and left. Li Yuran's lips curled into a smile. She suddenly turned around and asked, Among the people that old Master Tang brought this time, is there anyone that we have been paying attention to? Yes. The man in black didn't have the slightest hesitation. There are 3. 3 is enough. A mysterious smile appeared on Li Yuran's face. She raised her head and looked at the rolling dark clouds in the sky. The originally warm autumn wind was now mixed with a trace of coldness. She snorted softly and muttered to herself, It's going to rain soon. Now that the Tang family's elites have all come out, this might be a good opportunity. She raised her head, and there was a trace of caution in her eyes for the first time. Her voice was slightly hurried. Inform Qin Hu immediately. Take advantage of this opportunity when the Tang family is empty and take out the thing that I mentioned before. He can only succeed and not fail. There is only one chance. As she said that, she looked up at the sky and said, Tell him that he has an entire afternoon to operate. Tell him to use those few people that have yet to appear. Regardless of whether they succeed or not, they are not allowed to leave a single trace. Yes, the other black-robed man flew away. The related section of the novel has updated a list of readers who have given gifts in March. According to the request of several readers, I will not write it at the end of the chapter in the future. I will update it on the 1st of every month. Thank you again. Also, ever since the last book, The Legend of Ling Tian, was published, many brothers and sisters have supported me selflessly. Feng Ling had an impression of all the brothers who had appeared in the comment section of Ling Tian's novel. However, those who appeared in the comment section of the Evil Monarch novel from Ling Tian numbered less than 10%. Feng Ling remembered every single one of these old brothers who appeared in the comment section of the Evil Monarch novel. He also replied to every single one of their messages to express his welcome. Perhaps most of the brothers are lurking in the shadows and silently supporting me. However, I still want to see the names of my old brothers. Perhaps I should say that without you guys, there would be no Ling Tian, and there would be no Feng Ling today. So, brothers, please appear. Let me see my brothers. Let me see my sisters. That way, I will be more confident, and my spirit will be more satisfied, because everyone is accompanying me on this journey. Chapter 26. Go, I understand. This time, you did well. Li Yuran looked at the green-robed man gently and said slowly. The green-robed man suddenly became excited and cupped his fists. Thank you, young master. This subordinate will take his leave. It was as if the word well done was the highest praise. Li Yuran's face was still as calm as water. He nodded slightly. The green-robed man lowered his head and retreated 10 steps. Then, he turned around and strode away. He had been holding his breath for a long time. Only now did he dare to let out a long sigh. In front of this young master, he did not even dare to breathe loudly. Someone immediately informed grandfather who is in the palace discussing matters with his majesty. Tell him that Tang Wanli has brought many experts to the Li family, but there is no need to worry. Although they do not come with good intentions, this is an excellent opportunity. Everything has its pros and cons. It all depends on whether or not one can grasp it. Li Yuran smiled faintly as her black hair gently fluttered in the wind. In the shadows, a person replied. Then, with a rustling sound, that person had already rushed out. Although this time, June Moxie escaped, and the June family was lucky enough to stay out of this matter. But if old Marquis Tang were to let the Meng family cause a huge ruckus, the Meng family would definitely be forced into a corner. If grandfather makes a move at this time, the Meng family and the Tang family will become enemies. Then the Meng family could be completely pulled over and even subdued. June Moxie is the only descendant of the June family for 3 generations, so it will not be difficult to deal with him. Only the Dugu family cannot be touched and cannot be touched. Li Yuran sighed softly and stretched out her hand. Her slender fingers were white and delicate, dry and neat. As if afraid of disturbing the peace of the peony tree in front of her, she gently plucked a leaf from the tree and looked down at the green leaf in her hand. But even so, it is still very good. At least it is very interesting. The distant sound of hooves thundered like thunder as they arrived at the main gate. Li Yuran smiled playfully, her brows raised as she said, "Open the door and welcome old Marquis Tang with the grandest ceremony." After saying that, he suddenly flicked his slender fingers. His body flashed with a yellow light, and the green leaf in his hand flew out with a golden light. It silently embedded itself into the trunk of the peony tree in front of him. Just as green leaf made its move, a bolt of lightning suddenly flashed in the sky. Dark clouds roiled, already arriving above their heads. A gust of wind blew. The moment the lightning flashed, Li Yuran's white robe fluttered leisurely in the wind. Her tall and straight figure seemed to move, and then, with a flash, she seemed to have disappeared from the courtyard. Where did Jun Xie go? He had gone to a place that Grandpa Jun would never have dreamed of. Grandpa Jun had once firmly believed that Jun Xie would never come to this place again in this lifetime, because it was in this place that June Moxie had suffered 2 solid beatings. Each time, he was bedridden for half a month. These 2 beatings were also the only 2 beatings that June Moxie had suffered since he was born. Domestic violence. That place was the courtyard of June Moxie's 3rd uncle, Jun Wui. Jun Wui had spent his entire life in the army. Even his own place of residence was as close to the Jun family's military training ground as possible. Jun Wui was abnormally serene as he sat in his wheelchair. Through the bushes of flowers, he watched the Jun family's bodyguards train. The expression in his eyes fluctuated. That long-lost ambition seemed to be stirring once again. Jun Xie squatted in front of him. Both his hands were secretly circulating his xian qi. He slowly moved his hands over Jun Wui's numb legs, from top to bottom, then from bottom to top. This time, he carefully examined every inch of tendons, every meridian, and even every strand of muscle. A month ago, Jun Xie's body did not have the internal energy that he could use to his heart's desire. There was no way for him to treat or even examine his body. But now, not only did he have internal energy, this internal energy was also known as the art of unlocking heaven's fortune. Naturally, Jun Xie had to carefully examine his body again to ensure that there were no mistakes before deciding on how to treat it. After a long time, Jun Xie's forehead was covered in sweat. He stopped and stood up. There was a hint of joy in his eyes. "How is it?" Jun Wui's chiseled face did not seem to care. His tone was light, but his hands were tightly clenched into fists. The veins on the back of his hands were bulging. Obviously, his heart was not so calm. Although he had seen the joy on Jun Xie's face, he could not believe that there was hope for his crippled legs to recover. Jun Xie was almost his only and last hope. He did not even dare to ask if Jun Xie could cure it. He only dared to ask with how. He desperately hoped to get a positive answer. Although the situation is not very optimistic, there is no need to be too pessimistic. Jun Xie smiled. "It will indeed take some effort, but I am very confident that I can help 3rd uncle stand up again." "Good." Jun Wui finally could not help but be happy. Although he was excited, there was still a bit of doubt. After all, many famous doctors were helpless when it came to his legs. Although this debauchee nephew of his had been acting strange recently, how could he have the ability to save him? But at this time, Jun Wooey was like a drowning man waiting for death. As long as there was a straw, he would try his best to grab it. Even if his nephew was bragging, he would only be disappointed once more. How could an outsider understand the feelings in Jun Wooey's heart? Wait a moment, I will name a few medicines. Third uncle, arrange for people to go out and buy them. As long as these medicines are found, I believe that third uncle, the day you can stand up again will not be far. Jun Xie said, Good. Which medicines are they? Are there any particularly expensive medicines? I will immediately arrange for people to go out and find them. Jun Wooey seemed very anxious. Gut-splitting flower, open heart grass, 9-leaf grass, continuous severing root, and blazing heart meridian. Jun Xie named 5 medicines in one breath. Of course, he named them according to the names of these herbs in this world. A few days ago, Jun Xie had rummaged through all the medical books in the library. After all, it was difficult to mix the names of the medicines from his previous world with the ones from this world. Fortunately, there were a lot of medical books in the library. Jun Xie needed all the herbs he needed. All he needed to do was to follow the blueprints of the medicines in the books and compare them one by one. I have heard of open heart grass, and continuous severing root. But what are 9-leaf grass and blazing heart meridian? Jun Wooey asked with a frown. It must be said that Jun Wooey had been ill for a long time and had become a doctor. His knowledge of medicine could be said to be quite extraordinary. But he did not know these 2 medicines at all. Instead, it was Jun Xie's mouth that spoke of them. Naturally, it was very strange. Jun Xie smiled and took out a book from his bosom. It was an illustrated book of exotic flowers and rare herbs. He took it to Jun Wooey and opened it. Here, this is 9-leaf grass, and this is blazing heart meridian. These herbs, except for the blazing heart meridian, which is difficult to find, the other medicines are very common. Our mansion's medicine storehouse may have them. Even if we don't, we can still buy them in the city's medicine shop. And with these medicines combined with my unique method, there is a 70% chance of curing third uncle's illness. Good. Jun Wooey's eyes stared at the few medicines on the page. It was as if he had found a treasure. His voice could not help but tremble. A full 10 years. Finally, he felt that hope was right in front of him. Today is April Fool's Day. I was fooled by others. Alas, there were 2 brothers who said that they would introduce girlfriends to my house. I was very happy. Usually, no one would care about me. But today there were 2 of them. I waited for a day and didn't see anyone. I called and asked. My brother said that if you take some sleeping pills and lie down on the bed, you will get them. Damn. Woo-woo. Give me some recommendations to comfort me. I'm very fragile right now. Chapter 27. Third uncle, you have to be careful. If there are no ready-made herbs in our mansion's medicine storehouse, don't just send one person out to buy the herbs. It's best to send a few people, with each person responsible for one herb. Don't let anyone know what you're buying these herbs for. Although other people might not know what these medicines can do together, we still have to be prepared. Even if all the medicines are gathered, I must carefully examine them before they can be made into medicines. Jun Xie slowly said, At present, our Jun family is declining day by day. But if third uncle recovers, our Jun family situation will certainly be different. I believe that in this capital, there are countless people who hope that third uncle will never be able to stand up again. So, this matter must be handled carefully. As long as third uncle stands up, then third uncle will be our Jun family's secret trump card. Third uncle. I'm sure you understand what I mean, right? Yes. Jun Wooey looked at his nephew with a very gratified look. Mo Xie, you've really grown up. Even if third uncle doesn't have the opportunity to stand up again, as long as the Jun family has you, I believe that the Jun family will not collapse. Jun Wooey, of course, understood these principles, but Jun Xie was able to say it. Moreover, he was so thoughtful that he even had a plan for the future. This was what made Jun Wooey the happiest. Jun Xie laughed dryly and turned his head. As the world's #1 assassin in his previous life, he was now being praised with gratification. You've grown up? It seems like this is embarrassing. Jun Xie couldn't bear such praise. He couldn't help but think. Fortunately, he said, Mo Xie, you've grown up. If he really said, Jun Xie, you've grown up, where I put my face. If someone in my previous life knew that someone had spoken to the evil monarch like this, would they choke to death on the spot? Mo Xie, what do you think of our guards' training? Listening to the roars coming from afar, looking at the strong bodies drenched in sweat, Jun Wui felt a kind of restlessness that he had not felt for a long time. It's just some fancy but impractical moves. Jun Xie was daydreaming in his heart, so he replied without hesitation. The disdain in his tone was thick, and he did not conceal it at all. Showy, but impractical? Jun Wui shook his head and laughed. You're saying that the training of these guards with 7th or 8th grade Xianxi is just for show? Mo Xie, your tone isn't small at all. Is this even considered training? What effect can it have? Jun Xie pursed his lips. This can at most be called training. How can you call it training? At best, it's just a group of people who have nothing better to do than train their bodies together. Even the effective training is very poor. I can't see how their training will be useful on the battlefield, or how effective it will be in dealing with the enemy. In my eyes, there is no difference between them and a group of people who are throwing away their lives. They're simply a group of people who have nothing to do with the world and are wasting time and effort blindly wasting time. That's all. Throwing away their lives? Blindly wasting time? Jun Wui could not help but raise his eyebrows and shouted, Mo Xie, I know that you don't like to practice martial arts, and you don't understand the importance of these basic training, but you can't belittle them like this. Ignorance is not terrible, but using your ignorance to insult these soldiers is unforgivable. These guards are all elite soldiers who have survived hundreds of battles on the battlefield. Now that there is no more war, they have come to the Jun family and become guards. No matter which one of them, they're all outstanding men. I will take your words from before as a joke, but if you dare to insult them again, don't blame me for being impolite. This sentence is not a joke. Jun Wui's words were spoken in an awe-inspiring manner, and even Jun Xie's calm temperament was shaken. His third uncle may be physically disabled, but his heart is not. If he were to recover, he would definitely be qualified to be his best cover. A joke. Third uncle may not be able to hear what I said, but what I said just now was the truth and not a joke. Jun Xie spread out his hands with an innocent look on his face. I'm not saying that they are useless, and I have no intention of insulting them. Any iron-blooded man who has returned from the battlefield is worthy of respect. They train very hard, and they are very diligent. Anyone can see this, but does not mean that they can win on the battlefield. It is normal for them to throw away their lives on the battlefield after training hard for a few years. I said that they are wasting time because they are training in the wrong direction. Training in the wrong direction? Jun Wui's face was still angry, but he had already begun to think. Since a while ago, this nephew of his was very different from before. Every word he said was accurate, and there was no mistake about it. Could it be? Take this as an example. Look at those two people fighting. Third uncle, can you tell if they're playing a game or fighting with their bare hands? They're holding back, and they're actually smiling. Haha, can this still be called training? Even a normal duel is not like this. It is simply a fight for fun. Isn't it just a show of strength? Jun Xie pointed with his finger. Look over there, a few people are lifting logs, and they are sweating profusely as they put them down. They look tired, right? In fact, it is useless, and they have not reached the limit of what they can bear. They have so much strength, and when they're sweating, they still have a lot of strength left over, but they put it down. In other words, even if they train like this for another 10 years, their strength will not improve. The only effect is that they are more proficient in certain movements, and that is all. But their potential, which is yet to be developed, has been completely wasted. Isn't it a waste of time? Such people are really lucky to be able to survive on the battlefield. As for being called warriors and heroes, it is a pleasant surprise. Jun Xie looked at these people in the distance ruthlessly. Such materials can only be used to guard the house of an ordinary family. As for any other use, they are useless. Third uncle, do you think I'm insulting them? Junxie's words were quite unpleasant to hear, but unexpectedly, Jun Wui did not get angry. Instead, he fell into contemplation. Junxie smiled mischievously. If grandfather really wanted to rely on these people to protect the Jun family, then the Jun family would have been destroyed hundreds or thousands of times. So, I am sure that grandfather has more elite forces in his hands, and those people are the real strength of the Jun family. Although I have never seen them, and I am not sure, I am sure that there is. As for these people in front of me, they are just a cover. Third uncle, don't tell me that these people are just a cover, and you have such a high opinion of them? At this moment, Jun Wui looked at Junxie with a strange expression, and after a long time, he slowly said, "What if I let you train these people? What kind of strength can you train them to?" "Let me train them? I don't have the leisure to do that." Junxie curled his lips. Smelling the sweat of these people every day would suffocate them to death. The smell of soldiers is not the same as the smell of sweat. The soul of a soldier is not shouted, but killed. "Push me over." Jun Wui snorted and pondered for a moment. His chiseled face had a resolute look. "Jun Moxie, let me see your true ability. I am so sleepy, I am going to sleep. These past few days have really made my eyes turn green." Chapter 28. The two of them arrived at the side of the field. Jun Wui coughed and shouted, "Assemble the entire army. Come to me and form up." It was a military order. Although Jun Wui hadn't issued a military order for 10 years, but when Jun Wui said it now, it naturally carried a decisive and murderous aura. The sudden arrival of hope made this once great general feel that his life and death were all in his hands again. Everyone who heard the military order had the same feeling in their hearts. If they didn't hurry over at the fastest speed, their heads would roll in the next moment, and there would be no room for turning back. In a flash, 300 guards stood neatly in front of the two of them. Looking at the rough faces covered with sweat, Jun Wui nodded in satisfaction. He raised a hand and pointed at Junxie. "From this moment onwards, your training will be under the third young master's sole responsibility. No matter what I want you to do, you must obey unconditionally. Do you understand?" As soon as this sentence was said, there was a sudden uproar, and no one answered for a long time. Jun Wui's face was filled with anger, but he didn't say anything. He only looked at Junxie. He had already said that from now on, Junxie was the highest-ranking officer here. In other words, the moment he said that, he had already given Junxie this authority. No matter what, these people in front of him were now Junxie's business. As for how Junxie exercised his authority, Jun Wui wouldn't interfere. If his nephew couldn't even pass this stage, then it would be enough to prove that he had been exaggerating for the past 2 days. He could also cut off this hope. Junxie laughed bitterly in his heart. He took a step forward and said in a low voice, "Just now I was talking to Third Uncle about your training. Third Uncle asked me, 'How is your training going? Are you considered elites? Are you considered good men?'" "Ha!" Junxie's voice was not loud, but it successfully attracted the attention of the 300 people. Each of them looked at Junxie with burning eyes, waiting for him to continue. What kind of evaluation would they have in the eyes of this useless young master? "I said, all of you are a bunch of trash. Apart from wasting food and eating, they were just a bunch of trash waiting to die. If a war were to break out now, all of you would die quickly on the battlefield. I have no doubt about this." The breathing of the 300 warriors suddenly became heavy. They looked angrily at Junxie, and their faces turned red. Humiliation. Extreme humiliation. A burly man suddenly took a step forward and looked at Junxie with eyes full of anger. He said angrily, "Third young master, what do you mean by this? We may be the Jun family's bodyguards, but we are also soldiers who have survived hundreds of battles. Even if you're the master, you can't just insult us like this." "Insult you? No, no, no. The ones who are insulting you are yourselves. Do you still need me to insult you? Do you think you're qualified to be insulted by me?" Jun Xie smiled and stretched out his finger. He waved it gently and said, "You're not convinced, right? You want to beat me up, right? Fine, I'll give you a chance. As long as you can refute my point of view, you can beat me up. The third uncle will not interfere. This is my first order." Another uproar. Jun Xie's cold voice rang out once more. "Let me ask you. You claim to be the survivors of 100 battles. If so, those who entered the army at the same time as you, I believe that many of them must have become generals or deputy generals. At any rate, they must have become military officers and no longer ordinary soldiers. Their positions were higher than yours. You won't deny this, right?" The burly man was stunned for a moment and then nodded hesitantly. "What kind of point of view is this? There are certainly many soldiers who have accumulated merits and were promoted. Many of my colleagues were promoted because of their merits. This is very normal. Why did the young master mention this? But why didn't you become generals? Because you can't do it. So, compared to those people, you've already been eliminated once." Jun Xie looked at them mercilessly. "Among those who entered the army at the same time as you, I believe there are many whose Xianqi strength was not as good as yours. Maybe they were a little stronger than you, but most of them were about the same as you. Is that right?" "Yes. Why didn't we become generals?" Everyone was dizzy from the previous sentence and had yet to recover from it. Hearing this, they couldn't help but nod. There were also many who muttered in their hearts. Those who became generals just seized the opportunity and were lucky. Besides, what you said is nonsense. Will those who don't have any strength be selected to enter the army? Can those who are stronger than us become foot soldiers with us? However, many of them managed to break through the 9th level of Xianqi during their time in the army and became true experts in the truest sense of the word. After the war, they were recruited by many families, right? This kind of thing was, of course, common. Everyone nodded again. Their aura was not as fierce as before, and some of them even had a look of shame in their eyes. Every level of Xianqi was a threshold. The higher the level, the harder it was to advance. Although the 8th level and the 9th level were only one level apart, it was almost like the difference between heaven and earth. Many people had cultivated to the 8th level of Xianqi at a young age, but for the rest of their lives, they stopped at the 9th level. Not to mention advancing to the next level, the Silver Xian. Those on the 9th level are ants. This sentence was definitely not said for nothing. They advanced, but you didn't. So compared to these people, you've also been eliminated. Does anyone disagree?" Jun Xie looked at them disdainfully. The whole place was silent. Everyone was silent. After the war, many people had to leave the army, and some were selected by some secret national organizations or private armed forces or transferred away by other armies. "Is this true?" Jun Xie asked with a smile. This kind of thing was even more common. Everyone was silent, but their faces were full of shame. "And among those who were selected, you still weren't among them. You've been eliminated for the 3rd time." Jun Xie continued to attack. "And after you came to the Jun family, who remembers how many people came?" Reporting to young master, a total of 500 people came. Although the big man understood Jun Xie's meaning, but he still answered with a red face. "Well, in other words, 200 people are missing." "So, what did those 200 people do?" Jun Xie slowly paced 2 steps. "I only know that they weren't driven out, nor are they dead, but they were selected to do more important things." "Why weren't you chosen?" "Because you're not as strong as them. Obviously, you've been eliminated here again." Some people's breathing became heavy, and some people's eyes became red, but still no one said anything. "Tell me, after being eliminated so many times, in your heart, are you all trash?" Jun Xie turned his face to them and asked. "The day before yesterday, they suspected that we were cheating, so they deducted 10,000 points from us. But in just one day, we've caught up. Moreover, we've once again rushed to the top of the list. This shows that our brothers and sisters of the evil monarch are very strong. Now, the gap between us and the previous ones is very small. Does everyone want the evil monarch to rush to the top of the list in one fell swoop? Recommendation votes. Smash it. Rush. Kill." Chapter 29. Still, no one answered. Everyone was panting heavily. their faces red as if they were congested with blood. Extreme humiliation filled everyone's heart, and they immediately felt too ashamed to show their faces. Why? Others can do it, but we can't. Others can break through, but we can't. They were once comrades in the same trench, but now they were looking down on them. And why can't they look down on others? You might say that those who made great contributions to become generals are extremely lucky. Those who advanced in xianqi cultivation are more talented than you. Those who didn't choose you, that's because they have no foresight. Let me tell you, this is all sophistry. Luck? Why didn't you catch it? Those who think that their innate talent is bad have already admitted that they were born to be trash. Those who complain that others have no foresight are even more stupid. If you were the employer, would you choose a trash or a useful person? Everyone was speechless, and everyone was panting heavily, their eyes red. I'm not saying all this to expose your scars. It's because your current life is too comfortable, and you've already lost your courage. As the saying goes, after hearing your mistakes, you will be courageous after knowing your shame. Wrong, it's not scary. But what's scary is that you don't even know that you're wrong and are still complacent and proud. That's unforgivable. And now, none of you have ever considered what I said. If you had, then he wouldn't be here right now. There are many kinds of motivation for people to move forward, but humiliation, it's always the most important. Do you want to continue being trash? Do you want to continue to eat and wait to die? Do you want to continue to be stepped on and humiliated by others? Do you want to continue to be scolded by me until you can't lift your head up? With every sentence that Junxie said, a loud no came from below. At first, it was still very messy, but later on, it became earth-shattering. Everyone gathered their strength and shouted hysterically. They shouted as if their throats were going to break, and all the blood in their bodies rushed to their heads. Very good. This means that there's still hope for all of you. There's still hope. Junxie took 2 steps and suddenly tilted his head. Is there anyone here who wants to say this? Junxie paced slowly, calm and unruffled in the midst of chaos. No matter how useless we are still better than a good-for-nothing foppish young master like you, right? So, even though you're limited by third uncle's orders and obey me, you don't look down on me at all. Isn't that so? Many people raised their heads and looked at the expressions on their faces. Although they did not dare to say anything, they more or less had the same thoughts in their hearts. Unfortunately, your way of thinking is wrong. Very wrong. Junxie waved his hand. I'm just a playboy, and you're all tough men who have survived hundreds of battles. But let me tell you today, you can't compare to me. Why can't you compete with me? It's very simple. It's because I have a good grandfather, a good uncle, a good father, and 2 good brothers. They had sacrificed everything in exchange for the Jun family today. And you don't have these things. Even if I, Jun Moxie, am a complete debauchee, and even if I kill someone, there will be people who will help me out, and there will be people who will stand up for me. And you don't have these things. So, you can't compare to me. There's a balance in the heavens. You have to pay to get. Even a playboy needs to pay the price. And it's a very big price. There are no playboys among the common people, because they don't have this innate condition, and their fathers didn't pay the price. So, they don't even have the word playboy as an insult, and they will never get it. Let's not talk about others, but there's a good example in front of us. My grandfather, Jun Zhantian, was born a commoner and joined the army. He bathed in blood and fought hundreds of battles to create the Jun family today. Do you think that my grandfather was much stronger than you when he started out? Jun Zhantian's rise was basically a legend in the Tianxiang Empire. Naturally, these people knew his life story better than anyone else. Hearing this, their eyes couldn't help but shoot out fiery sparks. Someone's entire body began to tremble, unable to be any more excited. Can we also have such a day? Well, after saying so much, I believe you all understand what I mean. You were lucky enough to survive on the battlefield and have the peaceful life you have today. You can even practice as a game. But the things you've paid are only enough for you to continue living like this. That's all. Junxie suddenly stopped in his tracks, facing them, and said word by word, I'll only ask you one thing. Do you want to break through your current realm and become a first-class expert? Do you want to surpass those who have gone further than you? Do you want to do bigger and more important things instead of staying here to watch over the house and continue living like this? Also, June Xie smiled strangely. Do you want your descendants to be like me right now? To be a carefree playboy instead of being bullied by others? Have you ever thought that if you succeed one day, as long as your descendants have a future, your success will bring them great help that you can't even imagine right now? Have you ever thought that they would be able to climb to a high position with very little effort? They can even become great families like the June family, the Li family, and the Dugu family. The fate of your descendants will be changed by your hard work. June Xie's beautiful vision made everyone's breathing heavy with excitement. They clenched their fists, their veins bulging, and their eyes bloodshot. Suddenly, amidst the silence, June Xie roared out, "Do you want it? Tell me." Yes. 300 people roared in unison. Their voices shook the sky. 300 voices from the bottom of their hearts shouted together. It was as if heaven and earth trembled at this moment. Since you want to, now listen to my orders and train according to my methods. No one is allowed to have any complaints. I will let you reap the greatest harvest for your efforts. June Xie looked at them coldly. However, everyone must remember one thing. It's very important. During my training, there is a high chance that some people will die. Some may even be disabled. This is the price you may have to pay. I will give you a chance to think about it. If you are willing to accept my training, take a step forward. If you are afraid, stay where you are. I am warning you, before my training ends, no one is allowed to quit unless they die. So, you must make a choice right here and now. I will count to 3. Make your choice within these 3 seconds. June Xie roared 1. Before 2 and 3 could be counted, all 300 of them, with an awe-inspiring expression, took a big step forward in unison. Their strength was so great that the dust on the ground rose up, and even the ground seemed to tremble a few times. Jun Wui watched from the side, his eyes full of praise and admiration. With June Xie's encouragement, at this moment, even if these people were to die, no one would bat an eyelid. June Xie had boosted the morale to the extreme. He had mobilized the blood of these old soldiers to the extreme. Even Jun Wu Yi, who had always played the role of an instigator, couldn't help but feel his blood boiling as he listened to these words. His breathing became ragged, and it seemed as if the flames of war were raging in front of his eyes. The smoke of war was everywhere, and the bones of the dead were piled up like a mountain, and the blood of the dead was like a sea. The long and desolate horn seemed to ring in the depths of the soul with a majestic frequency, bringing with it the unyielding coldness of 1,000 soldiers. However, it aroused the boiling hot blood in the hearts of men. No regrets in 100 battles. No regrets in life or death. Bloodthirsty light. This was what Jun Wu Yi and the other 301 people's eyes flashed at this moment. At this moment, all 300 people felt that in order to get rid of this shame, what harm was there in dying? Even Jun Xie himself did not know that today he had been forced by Jun Wui to take over the training of these people. In the future, he would be able to train up a team that could roar through the world, a team that could move unhindered, a team that could cause the entire world to retreat in fear. The name of this team was Heaven Destroyer and Soul Devourer, the first guard that the evil monarch relied on to move unhindered in the world, today the embryonic form. A team of killing gods that was born from extreme humiliation. What kind of hysterical glory would it explode? Brothers, sisters, nothing more to say. Recommendation votes. Knock me out. Chapter 30. Since everyone is willing, then I will now announce the training rules. Jun Xie Lang said, I will only say it once, but no matter which one is violated, there will be no exceptions, and there will be no next time. Kill without mercy. In my training, there is no military stick, no corporal punishment. There is no such thing as regret. There is only life or death. There are only these two paths to defeat in front of all of you. From now on, until the end of the training, I am your highest officer. During this period, you're only allowed to listen to my orders. As for the others, no one else was allowed. Remember, no one. Whether it is my third uncle or even my grandfather, there is no exception. Those who disobey, behead. Drill according to the stipulated time. Those who are late, behead. Those who are dissatisfied and dare to speak out, behead. Those who disobey orders, behead. 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 A series of behead was uttered with a murderous aura. Jun Xie's own eyes also became murderous along with these few behead words. The 300 strong men all stood straight with their eyes wide open. The muscles all over their body tightened, lest they miss any one of the behead words. Sitting in a wheelchair, Jun Wui's blood was unconsciously boiling from the series of behead words. He unconsciously straightened his upper body, as if he had returned to the time before the war, when he was being lectured by his father. Looking at Jun Xie, at this moment, there was a kind of fanaticism in his eyes. The long-lost, iron-blooded and bold-bearing of soldier had returned to him. Jun Xie's encouragement made these guards in front of him, these iron-blooded men once again transformed into fearless soldiers, their momentum rising to the peak. Jun Wui could imagine, if on the battlefield, Jun Xie's encouragement before the battle, what kind of effect would be achieved. It would definitely make all the soldiers who heard it, with a smile on their faces, brave and fearless, charge towards death. Not caring about life or death, no regrets. With such an army, how could they not win? On the other side of the field, in the shadows, Grandpa Jun's face was flushed red. Even with his calm demeanor, he could feel his blood boiling. Looking at Jun Xie in the field, his eyes were wide open, his beard was trembling, and his fingers were trembling slightly. It was obvious that he was feeling very excited. Is this my good-for-nothing grandson? Did these words really come out of his mouth? Such lofty aspirations, such boldness that soared to the skies. Just like that, Grandpa Jun rubbed his eyes, and 2 streams of tears rolled down his cheeks. Jun Tian forced himself to calm down and turn around. His stooped body suddenly straightened, and his eyes flashed like lightning. His body exuded a sense of pride and confidence. At this moment, housekeeper Old Pang suddenly felt that the invincible general who had led millions of soldiers across the world had returned. Old Pang had never seen such a graceful bearing from Jun Tian since the first few generations of the Jun family had been slaughtered on the battlefield. And now it had reappeared. Yes, it was Jun Xie's performance that had given this old man a great surprise and hope. It made Jun Tian feel that there was still hope for the Jun family. Not only was there hope, but it was a great hope. This grandson might be able to bring glory to the Jun family once again. No, it was not just a possibility, it was a certainty. God bless the Jun family. Pass down my orders. From now on, everything related to the young master, no matter what he says or what he does, will be the Jun family's top secret. First class sealing order. Anyone who disobeys will be killed without mercy. Even the entire clan will be executed. Immediately eliminate the spies from the other families that we already know about. Find a way to transfer the people belonging to the imperial family. In addition, all the shadow faction will be dispatched to closely monitor the Jun residents. If anyone is found to be leaking information, kill without mercy. Take this opportunity to clean up and try not to let any fish slip through the net. Jun Tian's tone was filled with an unquestionable domineering and resolute determination. At this moment, Old Pang could feel a strong, murderous aura from Jun Tian. He could feel the importance that Jun Tian placed on this matter. If anyone really dared to leak this information, Jun Tian would really go on a killing spree. Jun Tian did not know why his grandson had been enduring all this time. But he knew that there must be a reason for his grandson's actions. There must be a plan. However, even though Jun Xie's performance today had surprised him, the old man felt that his grandson was still a bit too rash. If such news were spread, and some people with ulterior motives came to know about it, they would inevitably develop a strong interest in Junxia. Whether this interest was good or bad, Grandpa Jun did not want to pay attention to it. Therefore, the first thing this wise old man did was to clean up his grandson's mess. He issued a sealing order, and it was a first-class sealing order. Anyone who dared to leak this information would have their entire clan executed. In fact, there was no such thing as forbearance. The reason was that Mo Xie was no longer Mo Xie, but Jun Xie, the king of assassins from a different world, the evil monarch of a generation. In the field, Jun Xie's words continued to be heard. Now listen to my orders. I will give you 10 breaths of time to prepare. 300 men will automatically be divided into 2 groups. If you cannot do so within 10 breaths, then everyone will run 100 laps around the field. Begin. As soon as these words came out, the formation was suddenly thrown into chaos. In a very short period of time, the formation was quickly divided into 2 groups. Each group had 150 men. Good, 150 men will be a group, divided into 5 platoons. Each platoon will have 30 men, then divided into 3 squads. Now, I will give you the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn. No matter what method you use, choose your respective captains. Platoon captains, squad captains. Remember, since you have chosen yourselves, you must listen to the orders of the captains and squad captains. If anyone dares to disobey orders, they will be punished according to military law, beheaded. Finished speaking, Jun Xie ignored their chattering, turned around, and walked in front of Jun Wui. Jun Wui looked at him quietly and suddenly smiled. His eyes were still full of surprise. Mo Xie, your performance today has really surprised the third uncle. Jun Xie touched his nose and smiled. What does the third uncle think? He did not ask anything, but Jun Wui knew what he meant. Jun Xie said solemnly, I originally wanted to pick out a few of your flaws, but I really can't find any. If everyone in my army can go through this kind of training, we won't have to worry about sweeping the world. Sweeping the world? A black line appeared on Jun Xie's forehead. Third uncle is overpraising me. It's just that on this point, my starting point is different from yours. Your army is training for the sake of Tianxiang Kingdom, but I'm training for the sake of our Jun family. It's purely for the sake of the family's safety. From his point of view, there is a fundamental difference. For the sake of the country? For the sake of the Jun family? Jun Wui was originally a great general who was loyal to the country, but after such a tragedy, he had been idling at home for 10 years, and this thought slowly faded away. Jun Wui knew that his family had worked hard for Tianxiang Kingdom, but 2 of his brothers and nephews had died in the battlefield, and his life had been ruined. If these were losses to the enemy on the battlefield, then Jun Wui would have nothing to say. But these few matters were clearly suspicious, but the kingdom had never cared. His father, Jun Tian, had been investigating openly and secretly all these years, and had found several clues, but they were all coincidentally cut off. If there was no mastermind behind these things, Jun Wui would not believe it. But the kingdom was indifferent to this matter, and this had made Jun Wui thoroughly disappointed. If he had heard someone say that the training was for the sake of the family, and not for the safety of the country 10 years ago, the hot-blooded Jun Wui would have been the first to jump out and arrest him and charge him with the crime of treason. But now, he no longer had that kind of thought, and in its place was infinite confusion. Was it worth it? Was it really worth it? The Jun family is a big tree that attracts the wind, and the undercurrents of the kingdom are surging. The Jun family could be consigned to eternal damnation at any time. Otherwise, is it really not good to be an idle debauchee waiting for death? Jun Xie sighed. Is this the reason why you revealed your true colors? Jun Wui's hawk-like eyes quietly stared at Jun Xie. If not for the fact that the family is in such a dangerous situation, would you continue to be a debauchee? I really wonder, at such a young age, where did you get such deep schemes? Thank you, brothers and sisters, for your support. We are temporarily #1 for the new books, but the threat behind us is very big. Brothers, please protect the fruits of victory of our evil monarch. Please recommend. Chapter 31. Jun Xie was a little speechless. If he hadn't transmigrated, Jun Moxie would have continued to be a debauchee. How could he have been so scheming? Even if the Jun family was still prosperous, he would have continued to play the role of a debauchee. At most, he would have killed a few damn people when his hands were itchy. Even if that's the case, I'll still choose to continue to be a debauchee. Jun Xie looked at Jun Wui and smiled. As long as I'm the third uncle, with third uncle supporting me, I'll still be the original Jun Moxie. Who would dare to mess with me? Jun Wui smiled. Up to you. In any case, I've seen through you. You kid. You'll never be at a disadvantage. At this time, the two teams had completed the tasks given by Jun Xie. Their respective team leaders, platoon leaders, and squad leaders stood in front of their teams. Jun Xie turned around and walked over. From now on, your two teams will be each other's biggest opponents. For the time being, I don't know much about your specific situation, so I won't give you a new training plan for the time being. For the next 10 days, all the training tasks will be carried out according to the original plan. However, Jun Xie's tone became heavier. Every training task will be increased by 3 times. Do you understand? There was a gasp. 3 days later, there will be a competition between the teams. Each platoon will select a team to participate in the competition. 5 days later, each platoon will select the champion to participate in the competition. 7 days later, the two teams will have a showdown. In the competition between the two teams, whichever team loses, the team leader will go to the arena and slap himself in front of the 300 people of the two teams. Do you understand? There was silence. I will ask you one more time. Do you understand? Jun Xie asked coldly. Understood. The entire audience roared. The two captains will be in charge of the training. I don't care how you plan the training. I just want to see the results of the competition in 7 days. I want to see who is the loser who slaps his own face in front of 300 people. This kind of competition will be held once a month in the future. Captains who fail for 3 months in a row will be slapped naked in the arena and bark like dogs. When the time comes, I will let everyone in the mansion come and watch this performance. I'm not interested in knowing any of your names right now. We'll wait until half a year from now. I've come up with 2 names for your 2 brigades. 1 large group of heaven destroyers, 2 large groups of soul devourers. However, those who could join had to be experts. You don't deserve this name yet. Everything depends on whether you can meet my requirements in half a year. If I do, I will remember each and every one of your names. If he couldn't, he would have already become a pile of bones by then. Of course, it's invalid. After you return, you must set a time limit for eating or going to the toilet. If you don't return after the time limit, you will be severely punished. No matter what happened, a timetable had to be drawn up. Every team had to come up with their own punishment plan. Then leave it to me. Now listen to my command. Everyone is dismissed. The 2 new captains had yet to experience the joy of being promoted and were immediately sent to hell. Wrinkling their faces like bitter gourds, they fiercely led the team away. Everyone had already made up their minds. Not only would they not slap their own faces, they would also watch the other side slap their own faces. It would be best if they could watch the other side slap their own faces naked and bark like a dog. That would be a little more satisfying. As for the competition, who's afraid of who? It's just a matter of increasing the amount of training for these kids. If 3 times is not enough, then 5 times. If 5 times is not enough, then 10 times. From this moment on, the 300 bodyguards of the Jun family had officially entered a life of purgatory. Outside the training ground, Grandpa Jun let out a long sigh and gently waved his hand. Then, he quietly left with old Pang. Master, should we call the young master over for questioning? What else is there to ask? Let him be. Grandpa Jun's tone was very relaxed, and his mood was very good. Old master, why did young master only mention the leader of the punishment team when he proposed the punishment? Don't tell me the others need not be punished? Ha ha! Old Pang, if you were the brigade leader and your soldiers were defeated, and you were forced to slap your own face in front of everyone's eyes, or even with your buttocks naked, what would you think? Would you spare your platoon leader? Similarly, after the platoon leader had received a torrent of punishment from the brigade leader, Do you think he would treat the platoon leaders well? So on and so forth. Everyone would have to bear a heavy burden, one level heavier than the previous one. When it comes to the ordinary soldiers, it would create an unprecedented pressure. This was called using soldiers to control soldiers. It was an unheard of yet excellent way to train soldiers. For Imo Xie to be able to come up with such an idea, he would certainly become a great general. Grandpa Jun was very pleased. Oh, so that's how it is. Old Pang carefully thought about it. This move of the young master is really vicious. Vicious? No, no. Grandpa Jun appeared to be thinking about something, his mind somewhat distracted. This is the only way to make the best use of resources and talents. Only by doing so would the person in power be able to free up his hands to do other things. This is also the only way to save manpower. It is also the most effective way. Be it the military, the state, or the business, this is an excellent way to do it. At least for now, I have not thought of a more ideal method. Good boy. Imo Xie. Jun Tian squinted his eyes, his old face smiling like a flower. Fortunately, His Majesty the Emperor did not agree to the marriage. Otherwise, this old man would have delayed him. Jun Wui immediately arranged for his trusted subordinates to be in charge of one of the 5 types of herbs. Originally, the Jun family's stockpile of herbs was quite large. However, the herbs that Jun Xie wanted were all relatively rare and needed to be purchased from pharmacy. Jun Xie hurriedly returned to his room, not even bothering to check his spoils of war. He closed the door and sat down cross-legged. Today, when Jun Xie was walking on the street, he felt that the white mist in his mind was acting strangely several times. However, when he returned home, this feeling disappeared. This made Jun Xie very surprised. But when he calmed down and carefully circulated his qi, he did not find any abnormalities. He could not help but be puzzled. Could it be due to external factors? Another thing that puzzled Jun Xie was that when he was not circulating his qi, the white mist in his mind would unconsciously rush out and circulate around Jun Xie's meridians before returning. This was also the time when the white mist came out the most, and the benefits to Jun Xie's body were greater. But when Jun Xie wholeheartedly circulated his qi, the white mist in his mind would only appear strand by strand, accompanying the flow of energy that Jun Xie had cultivated in his meridians. The effect was not as good as when the white mist came out on its own. The third thing that Jun Xie did not understand was the art of unlocking heaven's fortune. Based on its name and its strange origin, this qi technique was naturally very amazing. But ever since he had cultivated his qi sense, the flow of energy in his meridians had always been strand by strand. No matter how hard Jun Xie tried, he could not strengthen it even a little bit. Although this little bit was indeed extremely tough, it was easier to use and the quality was sufficient, but the quantity was still lacking. In comparison, if the internal energy in his previous life was as thick as a finger in his meridians, then the current flow of energy was only as thick as a strand of hair. The difference was undoubtedly huge, almost incomparable. But in terms of quality, if the internal energy in his previous life was like hemp rope, then the current flow of energy was at least the legendary heavenly silk that no sword or saber could damage. And this was still the most conservative estimate. The two could not be compared. Chapter 32. Although this stream of qi was thin, it could be said to be tenacious and indomitable. However, Jun Xie was still not satisfied. This was because he had only just grasped the basics of this qi flow. He was simply unable to bring out its full potential. If he were to use it for gambling or cheating, he might be able to pull out a few tricks without anyone noticing. However, if he were to use it to fight with his life on the line, it was simply not enough. Even if it was skyworm silk, a single strand of skyworm silk could indeed support a weight of 200 pounds, which was quite rare, but Jun Xie still wanted to have 100 or even 1,000 or 10,000 strands of skyworm silk to use as his internal energy. Therefore, if he wanted this stream of qi to completely strengthen and fill his meridians, instead of just an empty strand of it, Jun Xie felt that he still had a long way to go. But now, there was also an advantage, and that was if he used it to plot against someone, it could really be done without anyone noticing. Jun Xie closed his eyes, carefully thinking about the use of this special stream of qi in his body, and slowly entered into a state of oblivion. The Li family, old Master Tang, Wanli's aggressive arrival, was like a fist punching into a pile of cotton. The eldest grandson of the Li family, Li Yuran, received him warmly, courteously, and affectionately. This made old Master Tang feel a little uncomfortable, and he really could not find any fault with it. Even though he wanted to get angry, under Li Yuran's kind and calm smile, he could not let it out. But holding it in his heart made him uncomfortable. He drank a mouthful of tea and slammed the teacup on the table, breaking it into 8 pieces. Li Yuran's smile was still leisurely and gentle as he said, "Someone, quickly serve another cup of tea to the old Marquis." Speaking to her, his tone suddenly became a little heavier. "Why were you so negligent before? Quickly bring the best quality cold smoked tea from my grandfather's room. I remember my grandfather said that the old Marquis Tang's favorite drink is this best quality cold smoked tea." As he spoke, he once again lowered his posture and looked apologetically at Master Tang Wanli. "Old Marquis, this junior decided on your behalf without permission. Please do not take it to heart. If there is any oversight in what this junior said, please point it out immediately, and I will immediately have the servants change it." Old Master Tang's eyes widened and his mouth opened, but like a dog biting a hedgehog, he did not know where to bite. After hesitating for a long time, he finally said, "Call Li Feng, Li Zhen, and the other 3 little bastards out for me. I have something to ask them." Li Yuran's face showed a difficult expression. The old Master Tang wants to instruct this junior. It is their good fortune. It is just that the old master has come at the wrong time. These 3 people have committed a mistake and are currently being punished by the family law. Could the old master please step aside and wait for the 3 of them to receive the family law before listening to the old master's teachings? When the Tang family heard this, they were immediately startled. A group of people filed into the Li family's discipline hall. Seeing Li Feng and the other 2 who were beaten into a bloody mess, old Master Tang's anger immediately dissipated by half. He only asked a few questions, but when he heard that this matter was instigated by the Meng family, and that Meng Haizhou had long coveted Tang Yuan's fiancée, and that the reason Li Zhen and the other 2 were punished was probably because of this matter, old Master Tang's resentment towards the Li family instantly dissipated by half. But his anger towards the Meng family burned fiercely, and he became even more furious. After a hurried greeting, old Master Tang immediately led his men and galloped towards the Meng family's residence. Li Yuran attentively personally sent them out of the residence, repeatedly apologizing for the poor reception, bowing to the ground and earnestly bidding farewell. She watched as old Master Tang's cavalry rolled away. Straightening up, Li Yuran's face revealed a fleeting and elegant smile, but a trace of strange coldness quickly flitted across her eyes and then disappeared. Lifting up her white robe, Li Yuran still leisurely entered the residence, her movements free and easy, without the slightest trace of anger. The sky suddenly darkened, and suddenly there was a muffled sound of thunder, and it began to rain. The rain became heavier and heavier, and gradually the sky and earth became one. Li Yuran's footsteps suddenly stopped, and she looked up at the curtain of rain for a while. She softly laughed, shook her head, and said in a low voice, "It seems that old Marquis Tang will have to stay in the Meng family for a while." Ku'er sat in front of the window, holding her fragrant cheeks, and stared blankly at the pouring rain outside, her eyes already somewhat misty. Jun Xie ended his own practice, stood up, and came behind her. He softly asked, "Ku'er, what are you thinking about?" Ku'er cried out in alarm and turned her head. She stood up bewilderedly and bowed her head. "Young master, what are you thinking about?" Jun Xie walked to the chair at the side and sat down, crossing his legs out of habit. Jun Xie looked at the little lowly before him. The little lowly's appearance was delicate and adorable. Every time, Jun Xie could not help but tease her a little. Because of that, he could not help but show some concern when he saw how troubled this little girl was. I, I was thinking in a few days it will be the Golden Autumn Festival. Ku-er's eyes were a little weak. I remember 3 years ago, on the Golden Autumn Festival, I was 9 years old, and I was still with my father and mother. At that time, I was very happy, father, mother. Two big drops of tears rolled down her face and fell to the ground. She could not continue the rest of her words. Then, where's your father now? As soon as Jun Xie asked this question, he recalled this matter from his memory. Ku-er's father was a squad leader under the Jun family, and he followed Jun Moxie's elder brother, Jun Mayo, to battle and never returned. Ku-er's mother, because she missed her late husband, became ill and finally fell ill. Before she died, she sent Ku-er to the Jun residence and begged the Jun family to take care of her. Now Ku-er was an orphan. Thinking of how Jun Moxie used to scold and beat Ku-er, and how this poor girl had been silently enduring it, Jun Xie could not help but feel an inexplicable sense of pity in his heart. He lightly sighed and reached out to stroke her hair, but did not say anything. Hearing the words Golden Autumn Festival, he calculated the date and realized that it was almost the Mid-Autumn Festival. Jun Xie suddenly felt a sour feeling in his heart. It seemed that he would have to spend this traditional Chinese festival alone in this world. Ku-er felt that Jun Xie was gently stroking her hair. It was surprisingly soft, and she did not make a sound. In her heart, she could feel Jun Xie's pity and sincere apology towards her. Suddenly, she felt a burst of warmth, like a little sister who had suddenly met her big brother, and her heart was filled with a burst of softness and a burst of warmth. Suddenly, she felt that this foppish young master, who used to beat and scold her, was now like the person closest to her. This change was very abrupt and also very strange. She could not help but lean her small body against Jun Xie's and feel the warmth of Jun Xie's body. Suddenly, she felt that the rain outside the window had nothing to do with her. After a long time, Jun Xie stroked Ku-er's hair and said, "Have a good rest, and it would be best if you sleep. I'll go out for a while." "Young master, it's raining so heavily. Where are you going?" Ku-er was a little puzzled and asked with concern, "What if you get sick from the rain? I'll prepare an umbrella for you." "I'll be fine." Jun Xie smiled faintly, and his face was still indifferent. He casually grabbed a bamboo hat and put it on his head. Then he pushed open the door, and his tall figure disappeared into the rain. Ku-er, who was behind him, had a face full of worry. She could feel that her young master's heart was filled with pain and an unspeakable depression. The Hongjun Pagoda in Jun Xie's mind could also feel the restlessness in Jun Xie's heart. The white qi of the Hongjun Pagoda in his mind surged and started to spin at a high speed. The white qi followed Jun Xie's surging blood and quickly flowed through his meridians. It seemed as if it wanted to soothe the unhappiness and depression in Jun Xie's heart. Chapter 33. Raindrops pattered against the bamboo hat. Jun Xie quickly left the Jun family's residence through the side door, strolling along the main street. The originally bustling pedestrians had now completely disappeared due to the sudden arrival of the downpour. The shops on both sides of the street were filled with people seeking shelter from the rain. From time to time, bursts of laughter and curses could be heard. The clamor of the surroundings and the heavy rain seemed to blend into one. Jun Xie strolled alone among the fish, watching the raindrops form a huge curtain from the sky to the earth and then patter against the bamboo hat. From the bottom of his heart, Jun Xie sincerely felt his own insignificance and loneliness. Even if he was the world's strongest assassin in his previous life, so what? Even if he had a great opportunity to transcend death and transmigrate to another world, so what? Even if he obtained the mysterious treasure Hong Jun Pagoda and had the opportunity to cultivate the mysterious art of unlocking heaven's fortune, so what? In the end, he was just a grain of sand in the vast ocean between heaven and earth, insignificant, lonely, and lonely. I have never seen the ancients before and never seen the successors after. Thinking of the long and drawn-out world, I alone shed tears of sorrow. Jun Xie smiled bitterly as he shook his head, thinking that this poem should really be written by himself. Living in a different world, it really was unprecedented. The true descendants of Yin and Huang. In this different world, there was only him. The rain became increasingly heavy, splashing water on the ground in all directions, and a hazy mist rose up. At this moment, the entire world suddenly became unreal, hazy, and even the pouring rain seemed to suddenly become silent. Jun Xie suddenly felt that everything around him was like a dream. Everyone and everything no longer existed, and in the entire vast world, he was the only one walking in the wind and rain. Jun Xie suddenly felt like he was a ghost, or perhaps he was simply sleepwalking. His heavy footsteps in the rain, and the sound of his footsteps seemed incomparably far away. This feeling of rootless duckweed made Jun Xie, who was once a cold-blooded assassin, feel his own weakness and powerlessness. The front suddenly darkened, and only then did he realize that he had unknowingly walked out of the main street and into a narrow alley. In the curtain of rain, a rod of wine, like a dead salted fish, was picked out by a bamboo pole and hung vertically. The fragrance of wine wafted from within. Dukong was the only one who could solve this problem. Wine was the only way to drown one's sorrows. Jun Xie hesitated for a moment before walking into the hotel. There were very few people in the store. There were only 4 or 5 tables, but all of them were empty. In such a heavy rain, the business of the hotel was naturally sluggish, let alone such a remote store. However, in the corner of the store, there was another person wearing a bamboo hat that covered his face. He sat there quietly, pouring himself a cup of wine. He seemed to be enjoying himself, but it also seemed more like he was lonely. Jun Xie casually ordered 2 side dishes and a jar of wine. Then, he silently sat in the corner and drank by himself as if there was no one else around. In the heavy rain, in the small restaurant alone. This cup is for the people I killed in my previous life. I'm sorry, but you won't have the chance to take revenge. He drank it all in one gulp. This cup is for the people I will kill in this life. I'm sorry, but you are destined to die in my hands. Cheers! This cup is for Master and Junior Sisters. I wish you a smooth killing, an early end, and a peaceful and happy life for the rest of your lives. This cup is for... Jun Xie acted as if there was no one else around him as he drank cup after cup. Even though he did not make a single sound, all his emotions, all his sighs, all his loneliness were all poured into cup after cup of wine. Along with the boiling hot wine, it fell into his stomach. From today onwards, in this world, I am Jun Moxie. Jun Xie was only the #1 assassin in his previous life, a distant memory. The wine in the small restaurant was naturally not outstanding. It was even bland like water. As someone who was used to drinking fine wine, it was a little hard for Jun Xie to swallow. However, at this moment, Jun Xie did not feel that the wine was good. In fact, even if he was given the Jade Pool Celestial Brew, he would not be able to taste much of it. The only taste he could taste was bitterness, sourness, and melancholy. In this strange world, weakness, indulgence, this was the only time. From today onwards, the path of the evil monarch, the path of iron and blood. From today onwards, I will use the mountains of bones and seafood blood of this different world to build the evil monarch's unparalleled reputation. The evil monarch of this different world. Only I, Mo Xie. Another cup went down his stomach. But Jun Xie still did not feel the slightest bit drunk. He continued to pour cup after cup. What Jun Xie did not know was that this strange behavior of his was strangely incompatible with everything around him. It was as if he had become a separate entity within the boundless heaven and earth, completely isolated from the heavens, the earth, and the wind and rain. The kind of solitude that separated him from the rest of the world. The carefreeness of looking at the wind and clouds, and the transcendence of solitude, all perfectly merged into one with his body. Only at this moment, Jun Xie was still Jun Xie, the mysterious #1 assassin, and not the Mo Xie of this world. The only customer in the corner had only glanced at Jun Xie from the corner of his eye, when he came in. Now, he was staring at Jun Xie without blinking, seeing Jun Xie drinking to his heart's content as if there was no one else around him. He could not help but be curious about Jun Xie's extraordinary demeanor. Jun Xie did not know how many cups of wine he had drunk. He almost mechanically raised his cup again. When he was about to drink this cup, he suddenly heard a voice from the side. "Brother, you have a good capacity for wine. It is raining and the wind is strong, and there are only the two of us here. It is rare for us to meet. Why don't we drink together?" Jun Xie raised his head and saw that the customer beside him had already taken off his bamboo hat, revealing a square and dignified face. He was not angry, but his eyes were as gentle as water, looking at Jun Xie with a smile. Jun Xie laughed out. He reached out to take off the bamboo hat on his head and casually hung it on his back. He laughed and said, "The autumn wind and rain can kill a person's soul. To be able to meet in this little shop is a form of fate. Please." The customer did not expect Jun Xie to be so young. He could not help but be startled and said with a smile, "If that is so, I will accept your invitation." He ordered the waiter to serve a few more dishes and 2 jars of wine. Then he walked over with a cup of wine and sat opposite Jun Xie. He asked with a smile, "In the capital, such a handsome young man is really rare. I wonder which famous family are you from, little brother?" "Famous family?" Jun Xie sneered and said with disdain, "The duckweed floating in the world is nameless, and the gentleman who plays games in the world does not ask. Could it be that in brother's eyes, only the descendants of famous families can have a so-called outstanding elegance?" "Oh, hee, as expected, I misspoke. I will punish myself with a cup of wine." The middle-aged man raised his cup and drank it in one gulp, his movements free and easy. Looking at his face, Jun Xie already knew that this person was certainly not an ordinary person. Just by looking at the oppressive aura of wealth between his brows and the natural and unrestrained nature of each and every movement, he could see that they were this person's guards and bodyguards. He knew that this person was a person who had been in high position for a long time. Seeing him admit his mistake to a complete stranger and even punish himself with a smile, he could not help but slightly change his opinion of him. He felt that it was not a disgrace to drink with such a person at the same table. "May I ask for little brother's great name?" The person drank a cup of wine and asked while looking at Jun Xie. Jun Xie's indifferent and unrestrained manner made this person very interested in Jun Xie's identity. "Sorry, I said I would update at midnight. I did not expect to lie on the keyboard and fall asleep. I only realized it was already this time when I woke up from the cold. Sorry. When the snot and sneeze come, I will go make the ginger soup first." Chapter 34. Wanderer to the ends of the earth. Why must we meet before knowing each other? We only need to drink to our heart's content. That is why we came here. After drinking, we will go our separate ways, and we may not miss each other. Names are just a mark. What good is it to remember? What harm is it to lose? Jun Xie was still immersed in his melancholy, so he would not say Jun Xie's real name. But if he said the 3 words Jun Moxie, who knows if this man would run away in the rain? After all, the name of a playboy in the capital was quite lethal. The world is nameless. The Lord who plays games in the world does not ask. Wanderer to the ends of the earth. Why must we meet before knowing each other? The middle-aged man recited, and couldn't help but be moved. Good words, really good words. I didn't expect little brother to speak so eloquently at such a young age. Even a learned scholar may not be able to compare. I have been impolite. He looked at Jun Xie and laughed heartily. Little brother's words are reasonable. I was too worldly. I am willing to drink another cup as punishment. Jun Xie hurriedly stopped him. You drink left and right. I haven't even drunk a cup yet. Are you looking for an excuse to drink more of my wine? The man was startled, and then laughed heartily, draining his cup in one gulp, and wiped his mouth. Although this wine is nameless, it is considered a good wine. Strong, spicy. This is the wine a man should drink. Not bad for this wine. Even if I have to find an excuse, I will drink another cup. This wine? Is it considered good wine? Jun Xie snorted. I say, brother, I'm afraid you haven't drunk any good wine before. This kind of wine is only occasionally encountered, and there's no other wine to choose from, so I only drink a little. If this wine is considered good wine, then wouldn't there be too many good wines in the world? The man's eyes lit up. Old song. Although this inn is not big, the wine is very famous in the capital, and all wine lovers are fascinated. If it wasn't for the rain today, this place would already be full of friends. Because of this, we can drink to our heart's content today. It is our luck. One had to know that Old Song only sold 20 jars of wine a day, 10 jars in the afternoon and 10 jars in the evening. He wouldn't sell any more than that. If Old Song were to hear little brother's words, I'm afraid he wouldn't let you go. Ha ha, you're not bad. You can actually make me laugh when I'm so depressed. June Xie didn't want to laugh, but at this moment, he felt that he couldn't suppress it. This is too funny. Such a light wine is actually limited? I'm afraid the worst wine I've ever tasted is 100 times stronger than this wine. This was not an exaggeration. This wine was at most less than 20% white wine, and its quality was a little turbid. To June Xie, who was used to drinking the best wine in the world, it was indeed a bad wine. In fact, any modern person might not drink it. After all, the wine looked a little turbid and seemed to be a little dirty. The middle-aged man's face turned ugly. Little brother, I see that you're a refined scholar. How can you spout nonsense? You can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want, even if it's the wine of the imperial palace. I've also tasted it before. Compared to this wine, it's just a little more luxurious, but a little less spicy. It's even harder to stir the blood in a man's heart. In my opinion, this wine is already a very rare wine. Little brother, you said that the worst wine you've ever tasted was 100 times stronger than this wine. Isn't that too hurtful? Ha ha, oh. You don't believe me? June Xie squinted at him. It's fine if you don't believe me. I'm not forcing you to believe me. Ha ha. But drink. Drink. Ha ha. Old friend, do you know what drinking wine is? Do you know what drinking wine is? Ha ha. The middle-aged man frowned and didn't say anything. In his heart, he was already regretting coming over. This kid was too evil. He came to make friends with good intentions, but he didn't appreciate it at all, and he spoke so rudely. Even if he had some talent, he was just a proud and arrogant young man. It would be difficult for him to become someone great. June Xie snorted and said in a low voice, the real drinking wine is drinking the mood, or the state of mind. It doesn't mean that pouring the wine into the stomach is considered drinking wine. It can only be said that the food used to brew wine is wasted. Wine, 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 wine. I didn't expect that in this world, not only is there no good wine, but there is also no one who understands wine. There is no one who knows how to drink, let alone taste or appreciate wine. Since ancient times, the sages have been lonely. Only the drinkers leave their names. Unfortunately, in this vast world, there is not a single drinker. For such a sorrowful matter, I will make a great white. After drinking a cup of wine to his heart's content, June Xie stood up, raised his head towards the sky, and laughed. Looking up into the vast expanse of the sea of people, there's actually not a single person worthy of sharing a table with me, and not a single wine worthy of entering my throat. This world is really sad. Ha ha! 1,000 cups is too little when drinking with a bosom friend, but half a sentence is too much when there is no agreement. The wine is not good, and the people are even more boring. There is no meaning in drinking like this. Let's go. This kind of trash wine is actually sold in limited quantities, and there are people who oppose it. Damn it. June Xie's heart was filled with anger. He suddenly felt like he was playing the lute to a cow. He felt that this world was simply made up of a bunch of country bumpkins. How can such a person be worthy of drinking with me? The evil monarch? With a pa sound, an ingot of silver fell on the table. June Xie arrogantly laughed and walked out the door. He ran into the rain and disappeared in the blink of an eye. No matter how good the self-restraint of the middle-aged man was, he was still fuming with anger. This person is so young, but so arrogant. No matter what, I'm a person with a high status. The wine that I like the most, is worse than trash in his mouth. Doesn't that mean that I am really, But in his heart, he was a little envious of Jun Xie's carefree, unrestrained, arrogant, and almost evil personality. When will I be able to live freely like this? The capital city was like a gigantic cage. Although a little arrogant, but being straightforward can be counted as a true temperament. Since ancient times, all sages have been lonely. Only the drinker leaves his name. What a good sentence. The middle-aged man silently thought to himself. He raised his wine cup and drank it in one gulp. He did not know whether it was a psychological effect or some other reason, but he felt that the wine that he had not drunk enough in the past was actually not going down his throat today. It is said that the ancients wrote poems in 7 steps. I thought that they were just flattering the ancients. But seeing this gentleman, it is not an exaggeration to say that he wrote a poem in 7 steps. Especially the last 2 sentences, it is really amazing. As he said this, he lightly recited, "1,000 cups is too little when drinking with a bosom friend, but half a sentence is too much when there is no agreement." Not bad, not bad. This sour student really has some real skills. At this point, the middle-aged man suddenly froze and laughed involuntarily. This fellow actually dared to say that I am not his bosom friend and that there is no agreement between us. Ha ha. Before leaving, he even scolded me, and even scolded me in a sour tone. Really a sour student. But in the entire Tianxiang kingdom, there is not a single person who dares to scold me to my face, including my royal brother. This brat has really given me a taste of something new. In Jun Xie's life, he had all kinds of evaluations, such as a homicidal maniac, a blood demon, and so on. But only the 2 words sour student had never fallen on him. Naturally, Jun Xie himself would never have expected that the few incoherent verses that he had uttered out from the scene would be turned into sour life by someone else. Moreover, it was a crazy student who scolded people in a roundabout way. If he knew, he would definitely not know whether to laugh or cry. If the evil monarch wanted to scold someone, he would definitely scold them in the nose. Why would he scold them in a roundabout way? He felt that scolding someone to their face was not enough. The middle-aged man laughed for a while. Suddenly, he felt that something was wrong. He turned around and saw a skinny and withered old man staring at the direction that Jun Xie had left in. The old man was motionless, and his expression was actually full of regret. Chapter 35. Old Song, what's wrong with you? Did you become muddle-headed because of that brat? The middle-aged man leisurely picked up the wine pot and poured himself a cup. He smiled and said, "It's just a young and inexperienced man spouting nonsense. You've always been a magnanimous person, so you shouldn't be so petty. He doesn't approve of your wine, but I do. Your Highness, there is nothing you don't know. I, Old Song, am most proud of being able to brew such a good wine. Everything else, to me, is but a passing cloud. If a mere brat looks down on my wine, this old man will just laugh it off and ignore him." Old Song looked in the direction that Jun Xie had left. It's a pity that when I heard his last words, he was already gone. To not have the chance to meet a Wine Nation soulmate is truly a pity. Wine Nation soulmate? Pity? The middle-aged man who was addressed as Your Highness was somewhat surprised. That's right, it's a pity. Old Song nodded his head in affirmation. For this young man to be able to say such words, he really is a person who understands wine. He muttered to himself, "The real thing about drinking wine is the mood. It's the state of mind. It's not that pouring the wine into one's stomach means that one has drunk the wine. It's just a waste of the food used to brew the wine. To know how to drink wine, to taste wine, to appreciate wine, to miss out on such a Wine Nation soulmate is truly the greatest regret of my life." Squinting his eyes, he noticed that the bamboo hat that Jun Xie had placed behind him had disappeared. Old Song's expression changed. His eyes suddenly flashed, and a faint blue color flashed in his pupils. It was also a pity that the Your Highness was right behind him, but he did not notice the strange look in Old Song's eyes. Earth-grade yellow, heaven-grade blue. This sloppy Old Song, who only knew how to brew wine, was actually a Sky Xian expert who had been hiding his strength all this while. Under the supreme Shen Xian, a Tian Xian expert could be considered to stand at the pinnacle of the Xian continent's pyramid. Such a character was actually living in such a small and secluded tavern. Unfortunately, if Jun Xie had not left with his unique senses, he would have been able to discover that this old song was not an ordinary person. He would have also used this old song's love for wine to make a big deal out of it. Unfortunately, Jun Xie had already disappeared without a trace. Jun Xie walked out of the tavern and walked slowly. His heart and mind gradually became clear. He was freed from the previous mystical state. The previous state could almost represent the evil monarch Jun Xie. That moment of madness was the true nature of the evil monarch in his previous life. He was not afraid of offending people. If he wanted to say it, he would say it. If he wanted to do it, he would do it. Even if he was condemned by thousands of people, the evil prince would still arrogantly face them head-on and face thousands of soldiers alone. He did whatever he wanted without any scruples. He didn't care about anyone's feelings at all. The world praises me, praises me, praises me to the heavens, and I accept it calmly with a clear conscience. The world denigrates me, curses me, and despises me. That is also a matter of course. This evil nature was also the origin of the name Evil Monarch. But now that he had vented his anger, Jun Xie, who had regained his senses, naturally wouldn't continue to maintain his evil monarch temperament. He restrained his aura and walked in the direction of his home. There was nowhere to go in the heavy rain. Unexpectedly, just as he was about to turn around the corner, Jun Xie's expression suddenly froze and his footsteps slowed down. This was because a low voice came from behind the corner, mixed in with the heavy rain. If it wasn't for the fact that Jun Xie's hearing was far more sensitive than the average person, he wouldn't have been able to hear it. The voice was, "It's finally done. If it wasn't for this heavy rain, I wouldn't have allowed myself to touch that old Tang family's things. It's really a blessing from the heavens. Tang family?" Jun Xie's heart skipped a beat as he suddenly thought of Tang Yuan's family. After thinking for a while, his body flashed like lightning. Using the cover of the rain, he hid his body behind a protruding mud wall at the corner of the wall. This mud wall wasn't very high normally, so it wouldn't be able to hide a person. But in this torrential rain, everything was hazy, and he couldn't see anyone on the other side, so it was an excellent cover. He slowly took off the bamboo hat on his head and let the rain pour on him. In an instant, he was completely drenched from head to toe. Because the sound of the rain hitting the bamboo hat was completely different from hitting the mud wall, Jun Xie had to be careful. Originally, the sound of the rain hitting a person's body was also slightly different from hitting a wall, but compared to the bamboo hat, it couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. Amidst the panting sounds, 5 or 6 people walked over, as if it was very strenuous. They didn't have the slightest suspicion that there could be other people on such a rainy street. One of them carried a parcel and turned around the corner. One of them said, "We've been planning this for a long time, but we couldn't succeed. This time, we brothers finally succeeded. If the first master knew, he would definitely be very happy." Another person panted and said, "We succeeded, but the price we paid was not small. We didn't expect that 4 of the 6 masters from the Tang family would leave, and the remaining people would still be able to discover the abnormality and our secret infiltration. If it wasn't for that mysterious person who lured away the remaining 2 masters from the Tang family and the 14 brothers who risked their lives to bring up the rear, I'm afraid we would also cough, cough, cough." At this point, he started coughing violently. "But this thing is really important. We can't afford to lose it. We should hurry back and hand it over to the first master as soon as possible. If we quickly settle this matter, we can also be more at ease. Sigh, we've really had enough of these days. We shouldn't delay any longer, lest a long night brings trouble. Let's hurry and hurry." "Yes, yes. But, Brother Wolf, when we went to the Tang family, your brother-in-law brought us in. If the Tang family were to investigate afterwards, I'm afraid your brother-in-law would not be able to escape, right? What's there to be afraid of? By the time they really investigate us, we brothers will have taken the reward, flown far away, and have fun everywhere. The world is so big. How could the Tang family find us? As for my brother-in-law, I'm afraid he's long gone. Do we still have to wait for the Tang family to catch him? That kid is very slippery if we have time to worry about him, we should worry about ourselves. That's true. The 6 of them hurriedly moved forward, getting closer and closer to Junxie. Junxie was watching from the side, and he could see that among the 6 people, 4 of them were actually seriously injured, and the other 2 were not lightly injured either. As they walked, blood flowed nonstop, and 2 of them coughed nonstop. Every time they coughed, the ground would have an additional trace of red, but that trace of red was immediately washed away by the rain. What exactly did they take from the Tang family? Why was it so important? Out of the 20 people who went in, 14 were left behind, and only 6 escaped. Out of these 6, 4 seriously injured, and yet they still looked very satisfied and proud. If the Tang family had something good, how could Tang Yuan not flaunt it to him? Suddenly, the person who was the most seriously injured suddenly trembled and stopped coughing. He shouted sternly, "Who is it? Come out." His eyes swept towards Junxie like lightning. His whole body suddenly shone with silver light, and he had already gathered all the qianqi in his body, ready to strike at any time. This person who was so seriously injured was actually a silver qian level expert, and he actually found traces of Junxie. Next midnight, rush to the new book rankings. Brothers and sisters, get the recommendation tickets ready. Chapter 36. Silver qianqi begins, and gold qianqi begins. It means that when qianqi breaks through the 9th level and reaches the silver level, it is the true beginning of the road of the strong. On the Qian continent, the cultivation of qianqi can be said to be quite widespread. Even the ordinary soldiers in the military camps have qianqi cultivation. However, the vast majority of people stop at the 9th level, unable to advance any further in their lives. This is also the main reason why no one refuted Junxie's rebuke of the Jun family's guards. More than 80% of the 300 guards have reached the 8th level, and many of them are at the peak of the 8th level, but none of them can reach the higher realm of the 9th level. It's only one level of difference, but it's almost like the difference between heaven and earth. However, the gap between the 9th grade and the silver grade was like a huge watershed, completely separating the people on both sides with a distance as great as the heavens and the earth. All under the 9th level are ants. This sentence is enough to explain everything. And the real high-level cultivation of qianqi starts from the silver level. There is a huge difference. Apart from the silver qian expert, the other 5 had also stopped in their tracks. 6 sharp gazes pierced through the curtain of rain. The bodies of the other 5 were covered in a thick black aura. These 5 people were actually at the peak of the 9th level. Although the leader is seriously injured, his whole body is still dazzling with silver light, obviously already at the peak of the silver level, about to enter the ranks of the gold level. It was also him who discovered Junxie. No wonder he was able to steal from the Tang family. He chose the time when the Tang family's strength was at its weakest, and suddenly sent in 20 experts. Moreover, he had planned well in advance, and even had an insider. If he couldn't come up with something, then the strength of the Tang family would be almost terrifying. But in fact, only 6 of the 20 people came out, and if the remaining 14 people were all 9th level, then the strength of the Tang family is still not to be underestimated. The heavy rain was still pouring down crazily. The dense raindrops and the rising mist made it difficult for people to see clearly. Moreover, it was an autumn dusk. Junxie was a little depressed. His current strength was still too weak. Although he had tried his best to hide his aura, he couldn't hide it flawlessly like in his previous life. It looked like there was bound to be a fierce battle today. However, with his current strength, would he be able to defeat these 6 experts? This was something that he had no confidence in at all. Even if he were to face one of them, with Junxie's current strength, he would not be able to match it. Unfortunately, he had already seen the other party's dirty deeds, and even if he wanted to get away, he couldn't. The other party would definitely kill him to silence him. So in order to preserve his life, he could only think of another way. He was the dignified king of assassins, but today he had fallen into such a bad situation. What a great irony! As he was thinking gloomily, Jun Xie suddenly realized something, a very important thing. This made his extremely gloomy mood instantly turn into joy, and even inexplicably excited. He almost laughed out loud, although he was facing 6 experts who were stronger than him. In his heart, at this moment, Jun Xie already had the confidence to win. Jun Xie's body was faintly discernible in the rain and mist. Although the 6 people on the opposite side felt that there were people in front of them, they weren't sure how many people there were, and they couldn't see Jun Xie's appearance clearly. Therefore, each of them was very careful and didn't dare to act rashly. After all, after the battle, their strength was greatly reduced, and many of them were seriously injured. A little carelessness could easily lead to a fatal disaster. However, for Jun Xie, the same situation was really no different from the daytime. In fact, it was even more obvious than in the daytime. Although the art of unlocking heaven's fortune was extremely mysterious and had its own profound mysteries, but Jun Xie had after all only cultivated for slightly more than a month. His cultivation was still shallow, and naturally, it was difficult for him to understand its mysteries and was far from reaching the stage of night vision. However, the 6 people on the opposite side seemed to be afraid that others wouldn't be able to see them, and each of them operated the Xian Qi in their bodies to the extreme. The silver light and black Qi were incomparably dazzling in the rain and mist. In Jun Xie's eyes, there were simply 6 excellent targets, and they were incomparably clear targets. It was like a big ship that had lost its course in the vast sea, and suddenly a lighthouse appeared in front of it. This was what Jun Xie was feeling right now. This kind of brightness, even a missile could hit it. Jun Xie truly discovered the biggest flaw of this world's Xian Qi. It was too dazzling, and there was no way to conceal one's tracks. If one wanted to fight, one must first gather the Xian Qi in one's body. But once one gathered Xian Qi, one's body would emit light. In particular, in front of a super assassin like Jun Xie, these 6 people were like 6 naked fat pigs, dignified and imposing, waiting to be slaughtered. No wonder when Jun Xie had cheated in the dice, no one had suspected anything. In this world, as long as one had cultivated Xian Qi and surpassed level 4 or 5, they could do it by remote control of the dice. But the problem was doing so would inevitably cause their body to flash strangely. Unless it was Supreme Shen Xian. But would Supreme Shen Xian need to cheat in gambling? The person who created this Xian Qi cultivation method is simply a genius. How did he know that I would transmigrate here and encounter such a situation? This is simply an excellent cultivation method tailor-made for an assassin like me to kill people. If these 6 people were 6 pigs, then Xian Qi in the eyes of Jun Xie was now fodder. Only after eating a lot of fodder could pigs grow so fat. Moreover, they would take the initiative to run in front of the butcher, show off their fat, and proudly say, "Look, how fat I am. Let's start the slaughter. If you like it, then cut it from there." And the role that Jun Xie was playing at this moment was this butcher. Of course, to kill a pig, one must also have skills, because these pigs in front of him did not seem to be easy to kill. If one was not careful, they might even nudge him. After all, the small body of the butcher was too weak and could not withstand a nudge. Under the movement of his muscles, the 18 gold coin darts that were originally hidden under his ribs quietly fell into the palm of Jun Xie's hand. Jun Xie's body was motionless, and his eyes flashed with a long-lost, bloodthirsty color. The art of unlocking heaven's fortune was operating at full force, and from his meridians, all of it was injected into the gold coin darts. In this autumn afternoon of torrential rain, when the world was dusky, the king of assassins from another world revealed his fangs for the first time in this strange world. For the first time, he displayed his colorful and artistic killing techniques. Pung! The sound of footsteps slowly sounded, and the 6 people slowly separated, stepping on the rainwater under their feet. They maintained the same distance between each other and carefully outflanked Jun Xie. They could all feel that the person opposite them was still there and had not left. This person must not be allowed to live. No matter who he was, he must be eradicated. The hearts of the 6 people were all thinking the same thing. In the misty rain, the person opposite them seemed to move a little, and then they saw 6 dazzling yellow lights rapidly piercing through the rain, as fast as lightning. Their target was the throats of the 6 people. Junxia's unique internal energy caused the gold coin darts to emit a dazzling light after being infused with his internal energy. The moment the yellow light flashed, the hearts of the 6 people simultaneously felt a chill. The 6 people simultaneously felt their bodies stiffen, and they were extremely shocked. One of them widened his eyes in horror, and with a voice that was on the verge of crying, he shouted half a sentence. Earth Xian, what kind of person could emit such a dazzling yellow light? Such speed and strength? Apart from Earth Xian experts, it was simply impossible for other ranks to emit such Xian Qi and such brilliance. Above the silver grade was the gold grade, above the gold grade was the jade grade, and above the jade grade was the earth grade. Such a gap was akin to the difference between heaven and earth. How were they supposed to fight this war? Silence them? They must have been silenced. Even if the opponent was just an ordinary gold-leveled expert, the 6 of them might not be able to match up to an Earth Xian expert, even if they were in their peak condition. What's more, they had actually encountered an Earth Xian expert when all of them were heavily injured. A new week has begun, and the list of new books is filled with experts. Brothers and sisters of the evil monarch, let us fight. Throw the recommendation votes at me. Chapter 37. The heavens want me dead. The 6 of them had the urge to cry at the same time. Despair. They had only seen the 6 dazzling yellow lights and had neglected the fact that the person in front of them was unable to give them the pressure of an Earth Xian expert. However, the despair and fear that had spontaneously arisen in their hearts had caused the 6 of them to be absent-minded for a moment. And it was precisely this moment of absent-mindedness that had completely determined the fate of these 6 people. The reason why Junxia had used the dazzling light from the gold coin darts was precisely because he had calculated this point. An outstanding assassin was most adept at seeing through the opponent's state of mind. He had calculated that when these 6 people were faced with an unrivaled expert, they would inevitably be at a loss whether to advance or retreat. And what Junxia wanted was precisely this moment when they were at a loss. A few heavily injured silver-leveled Xian experts were suddenly faced with a peak Earth Xian expert. The fear and bewilderment in their hearts was enormous. It was almost as if they were waiting to be slaughtered. These people were currently being chased. Of course, this feeling of utter despair would be born even faster. What Junxia wanted was this little bit of time. If they had directly launched a surprise attack earlier, at least 3 of these 6 people would have been able to avoid Junxia's gold coin darts. Because the darts had been split into 6 parts, the accuracy would certainly not be as good as a single dart. And as long as only one of them was left alive, Junxia would be in big trouble. Although they were injured, any one of them was still not someone that the current Junxia could deal with. The reason why the little leaf flying dagger had never missed its target was because there was only one at a time. Junxia's focus was naturally on that silver-leveled Xian expert. Although he was seriously injured, he was still the one who had given Junxia the most pressure. It was also him who had keenly discovered his tracks. After the 6 dazzling gold coin darts, another 12 black lights flew out. However, the first 6 darts had already attracted their full attention. Moreover, the overwhelming rain had blocked their line of sight. Each and every one of them was still in a state of shock. In fact, they had barely managed to dodge the darts at the very last moment. They didn't even dare to use their weapons to block the darts. They were afraid that the Earth Xian expert in front of them would injure their internal organs. In actual fact, if the one who shot the concealed weapons was really an Earth Xian expert, they wouldn't even have the chance to see the yellow light before they would have already lost their lives. Even the strongest among them, the silver-leveled Xian expert, wouldn't be an exception. Unfortunately, in their state of shock, they had completely overlooked this. Even though they dodged quickly, 2 of them still let out blood-curdling screams. They weren't able to dodge in time, and the trembling coin darts pierced into their collarbones. Blood spurted out, and they also fell down. Even those who had fallen thought that they were already dead. After being struck by an Earth Xian expert's thunderous blow, what else could they do but close their eyes and wait for death? Moreover, the darts had pierced into their throats, but they didn't notice that the darts had actually only pierced into their collarbones and didn't sever their trachea, for muffled screams sounded almost at the same time. Following that, the 12 flying daggers either pierced their throats or their foreheads. Each of the 4 people who were standing had at least 2 daggers on their bodies, and all of them had been injured in vital areas. Their eyes were filled with disbelief as they tightly clutched the hilt of the daggers in their throats and fell straight into the rain. The silver-leveled expert who had been taken care of by Junxie was injured and couldn't dodge easily. His situation was even more miserable. His head and body had been pierced by 4 flying daggers. They had pierced so deeply into their bodies that even the hilt could not be seen. Even in death, they couldn't understand why they were still hit by the flying daggers when they had clearly dodged the most terrifying fatal blow. When an Earth Xian expert faced an ant-like existence like them, he should have respected his status and not made a move. Why did he make another move? Why? Against an opponent who was 2 levels lower than him, he actually launched a sneak attack. Moreover, the first time didn't count as a second. Could it be that the Earth Xian experts these days were all so shameless? The Earth Xian experts of this world were all people who respected their status. When did they become so shameless? The Earth Xian expert Jun Xie didn't hesitate at all. With lightning speed, he pulled out the flying dagger from the forehead of one of the corpses. His footsteps didn't stop as he took 2 steps at a time. He flew to the side of the 2 people who had fallen earlier. With a twist of his wrist, he lifted the dagger and ruthlessly pierced it into their hearts. Although these 2 people had also suffered some injuries, it wasn't enough to instantly kill them. Although they were currently in a state of shock and absent-mindedness, they still had a certain amount of combat power left. An enemy with combat power must not be let off, even if he was already on the verge of death. The last moment of his previous life was the best lesson for Jun Xie. The enemy that posed no threat to him was only the dead. The murderous intent in Jun Xie's heart surged crazily. His face was grim. The flying dagger in Jun Xie's hand had yet to be inserted. The tip of his foot was already pointing outwards. At the same time that the dagger was inserted, his feet had already begun to move. After the dagger was inserted, he immediately let go and turned toward another person. Twisting his waist, he quickly pounced down. Using his hand as a knife, he slashed at the throat of another person. This series of movements was like a hare descending from a falcon. It was too much for the eyes to take in. Jun Xie's fleeting figure followed almost immediately after the yellow coin dart had left his hand. At the same time, blood-curdling screams were heard. Jun Xie had already pulled out the flying dagger from the head of one of the people. The 4 corpses had yet to make a sound as they fell to the ground. The flying dagger had already been inserted into the heart of the survivor. His other hand had already chopped at the throat of the last survivor. The person who had been stabbed in the heart didn't even have the chance to make a sound before he died. At this moment, the sound of the last person's throat breaking and the sound of 4 corpses falling to the ground resounded at the same time. Jun Xie was gasping for breath after everything was completed. With the current physical quality of his body, it was a little difficult to complete such a difficult movement. Jun Moxie had almost hollowed out this body. If he hadn't been reborn and trained for a month, it would have been impossible for him to complete the series of battles just now. Even so, the time was too short. He was completely overdrawn. When his spirit relaxed, he was no longer able to withstand the backlash of such a violent movement. He only felt pain all over his body. His muscles and bones felt as if they were about to break. It was a kind of pain that penetrated deep into his heart and lungs. The last person let out a wah sound as he spat out a mouthful of blood. This blood sprayed directly onto Jun Xie's face. His body was like a gold ingot. His eyes were filled with remorse as he looked at Jun Xie. He then said in a hoarse voice, "You're not Earth." He finally came to his senses as he was about to die. This person in front of him was definitely not an Earth Xian expert. What a pig's brain. June Xie sighed. He then looked at him and said regretfully, if he really was an Earth Xian expert, why would he need to mount a sneak attack to deal with trash like you? A strange gurgling sound came from that person's throat. His eyes suddenly bulged out in anger. His face was filled with unwillingness and anger. His body arched up. He didn't know where he got the strength from. He raised his trembling hand and pointed at June Xie. He wanted to say something, but didn't say anything. He only stared at June Xie for a long time. Then, he fell to the ground with a paw sound. He twitched for a while, and then stopped breathing. His eyes were still wide open. He had died with a remaining grievance. He had originally still been breathing. He knew that he would die without a doubt. But he could still hold on for a while. He wouldn't die like this. How could he have known that June Xie's words would directly anger him to death? He quickly circled around, retrieving the money darts and flying daggers one by one. Then, he conveniently searched the bodies of the 6 men. June Xie's expression was relaxed, and his movements were natural. It was as though he was merely going through his own pockets, not caring about the 6 bloody corpses at all. His life as an assassin in his past life had trained him to the point where he would remain calm even if MT Tai were to collapse before him. June Xie had also seen much more bloody scenes. Finally, he found a small bag in the arms of the silver-level expert. Weighing it in his hand, June Xie reached out to pick up the bamboo hat that had fallen to the side. He casually tucked it under his ribs and took a few big strides. He had already turned the corner. The heavy rain fell behind June Xie like a huge curtain from the sky to the ground. Suddenly, June Xie and the bloody scene became 2 different worlds, temporarily first in the list of new books in imminent danger. Brothers and sisters, it's all up to you. Feng Ling shamelessly asked Zhou Jian and Zhou Tue, brothers and sisters, can you take another step? You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.